So we'll start now with ethical standards board. We'll start now with ethical standards board. Yes, everyone. This revision I should do or not? Is it helping you or you were just kind of sleeping?
It is helpful, sir.
Okay, sir.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, we'll try to then revise entire professional ethics if you want once we finish off the chapter. ठीक है? Recent decision on ethical standards board. Let's come on to this. So I told you what, wherever in case of doubt, wherever when you are in doubt, you wear what? Sari. In case of doubt, you wear sari, right? Similarly, in case of doubt, you go to ethical standard board. So in case of doubt, you go to ESB. So I told you like examples could be, there could be a circumstance where it is not mentioned that it is prohibited under Schedule 6 or Schedule 1 Part 1 Clause 6 or Clause 7. However, it is not even allowed as well. It is not written that this is allowed. So in that case, you are now stuck whether it is can be done or not, whether it will be ethical or not to follow this practice. So you can directly ask and resort to ethical standard board. And in case ESB saw that there are multiple queries with respect to the same point, there are being multiple people asking with respect to the same query, then they might also declare their decisions. So ESB in their decision, recent decision of ethical standard board has been compiled here for your clarifications, and one odd MCQ can come from here as well, right? So we need to ensure all the points that we are going through should be in your mind completely and completely. Now let's see first point. A chartered accountant in practice can be an equity research advisor, can be an equity research advisor, but he cannot publish retail report. So are you aware about this equity research reports? Equity research report, if you are publishing the same, then it would tantamount to your publicity. Let's just see one example. There are so many equity research reports being published by many of the equity research firm. For example, ICICI Direct. ICICI Direct, I generally get in my mail, because I am customer in here, so I generally get the mails from ICICI Direct with respect to any sort of company that they cover. So let's see an equity research report of ICI. So see, this is a research report. Now here you will be giving what, your buy recommendation or your sell recommendation or your recommendation to hold the same, to hold the stock. So this here will, you will tell your all the assumptions that you took, everything, and you will also give the details who all have covered in this equity research report. All the details will be given here. Analyst certification, I V Bharat Choda MBA Bhupendra Tiwari MBA research analyst, authors and the names subscribed to this report hereby certified that all of the views expressed in this research report are the subject issue of mine, me, everything. So all these details are given in the equity research report. Sort of what will happen is publicity, right? So yes, you can be an equity research advisor, you can be an equity research advisor, but at the same time you cannot issue public retail report, because this, if you start uploading it, then public in general will become aware about the fact that yes, you are into this, and this is a sort of something which you can also resort to for your publicity, correct? Like what we do, what we do, we upload some free notes on Telegram, some free retail reports on there, so that you subscribe. Like the teachers, what we do, similarly the research firm, what they do, see, they will upload certain free researches, free reports on their web platforms, and thereby leading to what, publicity. And therefore you can provide equity research advisory. However, you cannot publish the retail report. Clear? Similarly, a CA who is a member of trust cannot be an auditor of the said trust. This we have already saw. Where CA who is already a member of trust cannot be the auditor of the said trust. If you are a sponsor of the trust, if you are a trustee in the trust, then also you cannot be a auditor of the trust. Do you remember? Which clause?
13 clause 3.
13 clause? What?
13 subsection 3 section में थे ना relators of trust.
Yeah, yeah, that is with respect to income tax you are saying. But I told you this point in detail we saw in which clause of professional ethics. You cannot do auditing services of any business or enterprise of any entity in which you or your partner or your firm or your relative is substantially interested. There it the clarification was there that if you are a part-time lecturer, if you are a part-time lecturer in a college, then you cannot do audit of that college. Just below that one line was also mentioned that if you are a sponsor or trustee of a trust, if you are a member of a trust, you cannot do the audit of that trust. Clear? Same clarification is there. Do not get confused. Clear? Yes or no? A chartered accountant in practice may also engage himself as the registration authority for obtaining digital signatures from client. So generally here what is there, if you see, if you are aware about this, there is one CA and there is one RA. There is one CA, there is one RA, and if the client wants to get himself a DSC, digital signatures, if he wants himself to get a DSC, then either he can go directly to CA and CA will issue the DSC to client, or he can go to RA, registration authorities, and registration authorities will apply then to CA, and then CA will give the client DSC. So you can be a RA, registration authority. You can become a registration authority for obtaining digital signatures for clients. You can be a registration authority. Clear? Then a CA can hold the. This CA is not this chartered accountant. This CA is called as corporate authority or any something sort. I'm not recollecting the full form, but there is one RA, registration authority. They have to apply to CA to get the DSC registered or to issue the DSC to the client. Then a CA can hold the credit card of a bank when he is also the auditor of the bank. So suppose you are auditing SBI, any branch of the SBI. Now you are also having the credit card of that SBI branch. You are also having the credit card of the SBI. So what it is saying that yes, you can hold the credit card of that bank provided the due date shall the due date for the payment shall not exceed and the amount of due shall not exceed amount of rupees 1 lakh. This 1 lakh is coming out of where? This 1 lakh is coming from where? Tell me. This 1 lakh is same for general
Related.
limit, right? General limit which was there for advances for indebtedness. So you should not be indebted to the company. If suppose I purchased certain things for 25,000 and I made the payment to credit card company for 5,000 only. So the due amount is still now 20,000. And suppose 45 days has happened and the due date has come up, and now that you have not paid, so amount is how much? 20,000, not exceeding 1 lakh. So it is okay. It is okay. However, if the amount was 2 lakh 50,000, then you shall not be eligible to become an auditor of that bank, or you cannot do the auditor or you cannot do the audit of that bank. Clear? Then chartered accountant in practice can act as mediator in the court. I will tell you why. Because mediator is as good as an arbitrator, and chartered accountants are already being allowed to act as arbitrator. Arbitrator, you know, arbitrator reconciliation services. You must have studied this in law. Your arbitration and reconciliation services. Arbitration or reconciliation services is what? Suppose Sashi and Krupali are fighting. Suppose Sashi and Krupali are fighting for over a property. Sashi is saying this is my mother's property. Krupali is also saying no, this is my property. And now both are fighting. Both sisters got fight. Now I'll tell, okay, come to your teacher. I'll resolve. Instead of going to the court, come to me. I'll resolve and tell you whose property is there. So, as per Arbitration and Reconciliation Act, I can be an arbitrator. You will come for arbitration. I cannot be an arbitrator actually. I'll be there for reconciliation. Arbitration is done in arbitration platform where there is an arbitrator or there could be a group of arbitrators, two, three. The process being is that they will lead to faster resolution and a quicker resolution as compared to when you go to court. And there also you have to follow what the arbitrator has ordered. The order of the arbitrator has to be followed by the parties. Similarly, the case could be conciliation, reconciliation. So a case could be what I remember was when this Anil Ambani and Mukesh Ambani had a fight. So conciliation was done by their mother. Okay. So that is how to resolve any sort of issue. There could be an arbitration or conciliation. You can also be a mediator in the court. Why? Because you are allowed to become an arbitrator. So why not mediator as well? Clear? You can be a mediator in the court as well, since acting as a mediator would deem to be covered within the meaning of the arbitrator, which is also permitted. That is, arbitrator is already permitted, so you can be a mediator as well. Then a chartered accountant practice is not permitted to accept the audit assignment of a bank in case he has taken loan against a FD. So why this clarification might have come up? So many of them might have applied to the institute. They would have told them bank, they would have told the institute what, that since we already have a FD with the bank, and for that FD we are taking loan, for that FD we are taking the loan. So in essence there is no indebtedness. Suppose I have given 1 lakh FD, and for 1 lakh, that for that 1 lakh FD I have been given a sanctioned a loan of 80,000. So there is no such indebtedness. I have provided 1 lakh and I got 80,000. There is no indebtedness from the bank, and therefore I should be allowed to do the audit for the bank. So ethical standard board clearly mentioned that no, this 80,000 is the indebtedness, and therefore you will not be allowed to do the audit of the bank, even if it is a loan against FD. Clear? Then ethical standard board in 2013 has generally restricted the statutory auditors to value the unquoted equity shares of the same entity of which they are doing the audit. So if you want to value the unquoted equity share, suppose Roshni Limited is a public company. It's not a quoted company, unlisted company. And we want to do the audit of the Roshni Limited. We have been appointed as an auditor. And now Roshni also wants us to calculate the value of the shares. Calculate the value of the shares. So can you be a valuer of the shares? So in 2013, ICI restricted you to be a valuer of the same company if you are doing the audit. However, now that ICI in the ethical standard board, they have recognized that there is no such restriction as such given anywhere in the regulation or anywhere in the act or any sort of regulation. So therefore you are being allowed. However, you need to adhere to the independence requirement. You should it should your audit still should be independent. It should still be unbiased. It should still be should be objective, objective in nature. So board has its recent meeting reviewed the above and decided that where law prohibits, for instance under income tax act, they prohibit you to not to value the any of the property under income tax act. There, yes, okay, fine, the law itself prohibits you, so you will not be a valuer of the income in under the income tax act if you are already a tax auditor under income tax. However, for other acts, or suppose for Pamla, they want any chartered accountant to value the property, then you can value the same even if you are the auditor, if at all Pamela does not prohibit. If the law does not prohibit, you need to just ensure what the independence requirement is not hampered. Just that. Clear? Similarly, Ethical Standard Board in 2011 decided that it is not permissible for a member who has been director of a company upon resignation from the company to be appointed as an auditor of the said company, cooling period being 2 years. This we already saw. Remember, cooling period of 2 years after you resign yourself as an director. So after becoming after designation as a director, you become partner in another firm. Then this firm cannot be a director. This firm cannot accept the audit of that company in which you were director. In which you were director. So 2 years cooling period we saw. However, recently in the ethical standard board decisions, they decided that since this restriction, this cooling period of 2 years is nowhere mentioned in the Companies Act, therefore, seeing again the independence requirement that it is not hampered, therefore you can accept the audit. However, question came in exam, and I'll tell you why. The person was held guilty by the institute, and therefore you will still stick to what? Still stick to cooling period of 2 years only. Still stick to cooling period of 2 years. However, you will tell this ethical standard board has in its recent meeting provided for that this cooling period is not anywhere mentioned in the Companies Act, and therefore auditor has to consider its independence requirement. If at all it is fulfilled, then yes, he can accept the same. Are we clear? Now you cannot receive fees or remuneration or commission from financial institution, for example mutual funds, insurance company, NBFC, you cannot start receiving fees or commission from them because of your advisory or because of your referral fees. Any sort of these fees are not allowed for you to receive. Just remember that, because that would tantamount to other business occupation under clause 11. Similarly, a CA cannot exercise lien over the client documents record for non-payment of his fees. I told you this as well, right? Remember where if you start doing this chindi chori wala kaam, I told you this is now told by the institute that refrain from this chindi chori. Where will we attract guilty of? Tell me, are you all
Part
relating?
for Schedule 1, Part 4, other misconduct.
Schedule 1 part 4 other misconduct. First example
Class
is
2.
illustration. Schedule 1 part 4 clause 2 other misconduct. Please revise. It is not permissible for a chartered accountant firm to print its vision and values behind the visiting cards. So you cannot just simply tell that our vision is to become the number one chartered accounting firm in India. Our mission is to provide services to needy clients. All these mission statements shall not be behind your visiting cards. It is not permissible for CN practice to take agencies of UTI, GIC, and SDL. I already told you this would tantamount to other business occupation if you are being an agent for any insurance company, for any GIC, for any GIC or UTI or NSDL. You cannot become an agent of these organizations. Even if or insurance also, only agency is allowed for renewal purpose only. Remember, only allowed for renewal purpose, except that if you want any sort of agency to enroll yourself with, then you will have to take prior permission of the institute under clause 11. Regulation 190A. Regulation 190A. Then it is permissible. This is important clause point number 13. It is permissible for a member in practice to be a settler of a trust. This is already asked by the ICI in one of the exam. So yes, it is permissible for a member in practice to be a settler of the trust as well. So yes, you can be a settler of the trust. So settler of the trust will be doing what? Ensuring that yes, the property which is being held by the trustee goes to the beneficiary ultimately. So settler has to ensure that. So yes, a chartered accountant in practice can be a settler of the trust. Clear? Then a member in practice cannot hold customs broker license. Are you aware about this customs broker license? Under section 146 of the Companies Act. So if you have enough paisa, if you have enough money, you can just take this license. You can just take this license and you can enjoy custom fees, sort of custom fees that you will tend to receive after each and every clearing of your client. So all the clearings that is being done by your client, certain portion of the fees has to be forwarded to you as well. So it's a good investment. If you are investing suppose like 50 lakhs, 10 to 11% generally comes out of this business. So custom broker license you have to then invest into, but and this is not being allowed by the ICI, as this you can probably see what it's tantamounting to other engaging into another business occupation, right? Now CA in service may appear as tax representative before various authorities on behalf of your employer, but not on behalf of the employee. Important point, not yet asked by ICI, could have asked. For example, like one example I'll give you, that yes, you can represent tax issues of, suppose you are employee in Reliance company, so you can fight for the Reliance company. You can fight for the Reliance company. Any you can represent before tax authorities for Reliance company. However, you cannot represent for Anil Ambani or for Mukesh Ambani. Clear? Because they are employee. So suppose you are fighting for the Reliance, you won the case. Now the Mukesh Ambani is very much pleased with you. He also wants you to fight his case. You cannot. You cannot fight for the same firm's employee, or you cannot fight for the employee of the same company. Of course, you can represent yourself as tax authorities in for the on or behalf of employer. Then lastly, CA who is statutory auditor of a bank cannot be the for the same financial year except stock audit of the same branch. This we'll also see in our bank audit chapter, that if you are already doing the audit of a bank, then of course you cannot accept stock audit of any of the branches of that bank, because that would tantamount to breach of independence requirement. Clear? Providing any other services apart from audit. Then a CA firm which has been appointed as the internal auditor of a PF trust by a government company cannot be a statutory auditor. So if you are an internal auditor of a PF trust of a government company, so this is suppose a government company, Suppose ONGC is a government company. Now it is having its own PF trust. So generally large corporates, what they do have is their created own PF trust. So instead of having a common PF trust, EPFO, they deposit where their own PF trust. So they have created their own PF trust, and now I have been appointed as an internal auditor. I have been appointed as an internal auditor of this PF trust. I have been appointed as an internal auditor of this PF trust. Therefore, I cannot be appointed as an auditor of ONGC. I cannot be appointed as an auditor of an ONGC. Cannot be appointed. Clear? Yes or no? Similarly, concurrent auditor of a bank X cannot be appointed as a state auditor of bank Y, which is sponsored by X. What do you mean by sponsored by X? Yes. Yes, tell me quickly. Anyone? Sponsoring is what?
Payment.
Now suppose, yeah,
Payment.
huh?
Because of concurrent audit, there'll be monthly payment. Most.
Monthly what?
Monthly charges will be paid to the concurrent auditor, right?
Yeah, that is different. What I was asking is sponsored by X. So suppose X cooperative bank. Generally, this happens in the case of cooperative banks. They have been sponsored by other banks. So in their share capital, you will see what they have been infused. The infusion of the capital is mostly done out of other banks. So suppose there was a bank which earlier used to happen was SBI Jodhpur, SBI Nagpur. There were so many SBI branch, SBI different banks of SBI, which were now been compiled into same SBI. SBI Hyderabad was there, another bank. So all these banks were sponsored by SBI only. More or less, the majority of the share capital is to be infused by the bank only. So suppose X bank has sponsored Y cooperative bank, Y cooperative banks, and now you have been told that you are concurrent auditor of X. So now you cannot be a statutory auditor of bank Y, of this cooperative bank. You cannot be a statutory auditor of this cooperative bank. Clear? Any doubt till now? Study gaming. Study gaming. What's your name?
So, can you please explain it again?
See, this Y banks, generally these cooperative banks, now they are the capital will who will infuse the capital. Generally, you must be aware about the fact that cooperative banks generally default, right? So most of the times you'll see in the cooperative banks, the um, infusion of the capital is mostly done by other banks. So suppose the bank X, one of the banks, suppose SBI, has infused the capital in one of the cooperative bank Y Limited. So they have sponsored bank Y. They have sponsored bank Y, and therefore in that particular case, if you are a concurrent auditor of X Limited, if you are a concurrent auditor of SBI, then you cannot become a statutory auditor of Y cooperative bank.
Right.
ठीक है? What happened, Pooja? Why are you late? Saturday मना रहे हो? अच्छा, you were there from study gaming. So what sort of game do you play? बोलो बोलो. Yes, next point C. 149 subsection 3. This you must be already aware about resident director. Do you know there has to be a resident director in a company? So resident director, who is a resident director? A director who is residing in India for a period of 182 days or more during current financial year. Current financial year, not calendar year, previous calendar year. So earlier it was there, in the Companies Act, it was mentioned previous calendar year, which was subsequently amended in year 2018. As far as I remember, this amendment came when I was studying. So in 2018, that was changed to current financial year. But ICI till now haven't changed their material, and they still report what previous calendar year only. Anyway, you should omit this as current financial year. Or omit this and write current financial year. 182 days or more in current financial year. So a director has to be there in a company. In a company, there has to be one director who is a resident director, resident in India. And when you will be called resident in India, when you are residing in India for 182 days or more during current financial year, during current financial, not even calendar. First of all, the change was with respect to from calendar, it was converted to current financial year and not previous current financial year. So Ethical Standard Board, while noting that there is a requirement for a director to be a resident director, decided that such director would be within the scope of director simpliciter. So yes, if you want to become a director simpliciter, non-executive director, not being a managing director or whole-time director though, so you can be a resident director as well in a company. Yes, if you are a director simpliciter in that company, and for that purpose, for the purpose of fulfilling the condition of section 149 subsection 3, company appointed you only as a resident director, then yes, it can be possible. Clear? If he is a non-executive director required in board meeting only and cannot be paid any remuneration except sitting fees. So are we clear till now? Ethical Standard Board Committee decision, all the decisions, please, you'll have to revise again and again. If the question won't be like you have to tell something, you don't have to learn, mug it up. You just have to be aware about what decision it took, because automatically it will get triggered. MCQ, it will be mostly tested in MCQ. So see, there are two sort of questions, right? You must be aware about. One is descriptive and one is MCQ, and both these are being targeted different memory section of your brain. See, in the descriptive section targets you to retain all these lines, all this stuff, for you to retain all these stuffs and then vomit out in the exam hall, reciprocate the same as is given. But in the case of MCQ, they do not want you to retain. They just simply want you that yes, are you aware about this or not. Automatically, once you see the options, once you see the option, you will be able to tick the correct answer. You will be able to tick the correct one only and only but once, if you are aware about the same and you have revised it. It's not that you have to mug it up, but you should be aware that yes, we can be a settler of a trust. So that in the institute they will ask what, that auditor, as an auditor, chartered accountant has been appointed in these four activities. A, settler of a trust. B, you've been appointed as a concurrent auditor of a bank X, which is sponsored bank Y, and now you have been appointed as a statutory auditor of bank Y. See, one question I remember when MCQ is given by ICI, they have given you a concurrent auditor. You have been appointed as a concurrent auditor of X Limited, of X Bank. Similarly, C, statutory auditor of Y Bank. And D could be, suppose you are any of the above option. You have been appointed as a resident director, or you have been appointed to hold. You have been appointed under remuneration by FI as agent, by any FI, financial institution as agent. You have been appointed under remuneration under any FI as agent. So now what the options they give? A, option A, you can do A, B, C, but not D. You can do A, B, C, but not D. However, the same line, the option continues. However, C, the bank given in option C shall not be sponsored by bank X. So this is the correct option, right? Option A, they told you what? Yes, you can accept the services given in A, B, C. However, the bank given in C shall not be a sponsored bank by bank B, a bank given in option B. Similarly, one option could be you can accept all this four. You can accept A, B, C, but not D. All these options can be there. So which option will be correct? Yes, first option, where it mentioned also with regard to sponsoring, that bank Y cannot be a sponsored bank of bank X. Bank X cannot be a sponsor of bank X. If you select only ABC, correct, that is also correct. if not mentioned, but they are specifically mentioned in detail about sponsoring in one of the options, and therefore you will have to select what option A only. Getting this? So you will tend to recall this once you revise it. You don't have to mug it up. Similarly, same goes for council guidelines. Yes, chapters you have to mug up because those have been asked for 4 to 5 marks separately. Each chapter can be asked. But again, there are few points which can be asked even in case of MCQ as well. Try to retain as if this question can come in MCQ, as in MCQ. Then you will automatically try to recollect what the points. If at all this is asked in MCQ in this way, or if not in this way, this can be asked in that way. Try to frame your own questions while recalling, while recollecting. Now come to recommendatory self-regulatory measures. So these are, as told by the ICI, recommendatory, not mandatory. It is recommendatory, and generally no chartered accountant firm will follow them. If it is recommendatory, why will you follow? So first it says that in case you are doing a branch audit, suppose you are doing head office and also you are doing branch audit, then you should not do branch audit. You should give chance to your small brother. You should give chance to your small bros. That is, give chance to your small firms having less than 10 members in their partnership firm, and tell them to do the branch audit, specifically if they are from the local branch, specifically they belong to the local area. So instead of doing branch audit by yourself, you can give chance to other local firms having less than or equal to 10 members, consisting of less than 10 members. This restriction, however, will not apply. Restriction will, however, not apply if substantial records, everything of the branch is being maintained at the head office. And therefore, if at all you are doing branch audit, if at all you are doing the head office, you will also tend to look into the books of branches, and thereby you can finish off the branch audit along with, right? Therefore, you may not then resort to outsourcing the local audits or to the local firms, the branch audits. Similarly, one could be where the accounting records of the branches are maintained at the head office, or where a significant operations of the undertaking, that is significant operations of the branch, are being operated through head office. So in an essence, that is not much an operating activity, operating a branch. The more or less the operations is being done through head office, and therefore we need to clearly assess entire head office completely, and thereby need not go into details of another branch auditor to be appointed. So branch auditor itself will not be required to be appointed in the case of 1 and 2, and therefore the restriction will not apply. Secondly, joint audit. Again, institute wants you to give chances to your small brothers. That means in the case of large companies, the practice of associating a practice firm with less than 5 members as joint auditor should be encouraged. So here what should be encouraged? 10 members. Here 5 members. Less than 10 members in the case of branch audits, less than 5 members in the case of joint audits. Just remember this if at all they ask you in MCQ. Now ratio between qualified and unqualified staff, this is also important. So suppose you are a chartered accountant, and along with you your other staffs will also go with you for doing the audit assignments, right? So per chartered accountant, for single chartered accountant, there could be max five staffs who are not a chartered accountant. But however, point to be noted here is that these 5 staffs, for the purpose of calculation of these staffs, you will not include article assistants. You will not include article assistants. So in the councils you are practicing from a chartered accountant engaged in audit work should have at least 1 member for every 5 non-qualified members of the staff, excluding article and audit assistant, excluding typists, excluding peons, and other persons not engaged directly in such professional work. So institute already thinks that articles are not directly associated with the professional work. But we as an article, we only know that we are the only ones who are directly associated, not our partner. So in an audit work, for every chartered accountant, only 5 other non-audit staffs, not non-chartered accountant staffs are allowed, maximum. Chartered accountant can handle only up to this much staff, 5 staff, right? Now disclosure of interest by auditors in other firms. So in case you have been interested, you got substantial interest or any sort of interest in other firms, then you have to disclose that. It would be a good and healthy practice. Auditor should make a disclosure of the payments received by them for other services through a medium different firm or firms in which the said auditor may be either a partner or proprietor. Clear? So if you are suppose a partner in multiple firms, you should also disclose the same about the partnership which is being held by you in other firms to all the firms. All the firms in which you are a partner should be aware about all the other firms in which you are the partner, right? And then lastly, recommended minimum scale of fees. I told you this minimum fees was earlier there but now has been repealed. The recommended sale of fees is to be charged as per the work performed for various professional assignment. The fee has been recommended separately for class A, B and C cities. That is not much relevant. So we are done mostly with 75% of this chapter. Let's try to finish off rest of the portions. So we'll come to now amendment portion of November 2022. So pay attention here now. This is important. Non-compliance with laws and regulation.
23 or 22, sir?
Sorry.
November 23 amendment or
Oh, sorry. This was May 23 amendment. See, already NOCLAR was inserted in May 22. However, then they removed the same from the syllabus. Now they inserted only amendments. Now they have inserted only amendments to NOCLAR. First, they should have inserted NOCLAR back again, right? Since they have repealed the NOCLAR from the study material, also they removed it. Everywhere from everywhere they removed. They included the same in May 22. Then they told that it will not be applicable for May 22, and for November 2022 they also removed it entirely. And for May 23 they only included amendments. So what my belief was, we should not only study the amendments but also what was already included in May 23. Oh, sorry, May 22, right? So everything has to be studied, including the portion which was included earlier. May 22 also along with that amendments. So NOCLAR is what? Non-compliance with laws and regulation. Non-compliance with laws and regulations. Do you remember SA 250? SA 250, Standards on Auditing 250, by chance? SA 250 dealt with auditor's duties in the case of non-compliance with laws and regulations. So what does the auditor need to do if the entity is not complying with the laws and regulation? So as a chartered accountant, when you are auditing the entity, then obviously yes, you need to be aware about all the non-compliances with laws and regulation. There we will also see those set of laws which are directly impacting the financials of the entity, and also those set of laws which are not directly affecting the financials, however are very important for the operations of the entity. For example, direct effect wale laws could be, example of direct effect wale laws could be income tax, PF Act, which they are directly affecting the financials. They are directly affecting the financials, right? However, for example, for indirect effect laws, which is not affecting the financials of the entity directly, however affects the operation of the entity. Example, child labor law, Environmental Protection Act. All these laws do not affect directly, however can affect operatingly or operational wise, if you see. So there we'll see SA 250. Similarly, all this consideration has to be now being done by a employee CA, also employee chartered accountant. Even if you are an employee chartered accountant in any company and you become aware about any fact and you become aware about any non-compliance with any laws and regulation, then you have to report it to the regulatory authorities. Then you have to report it to the appropriate authority. An appropriate authority as given by the institute, they says that appropriate authority will depend vary case to case basis. So in the case of suppose banks, it would be what? RBI. In the case of listed entities, it would be what? SEBI. Correct. In the case of insurance company, appropriate regulatory authority will be IRDAI, Insurance Regulatory Department of India. Sorry, Insurance Regulatory, yeah, Department of India. Correct. IRDI would be regulatory appropriate authority of insurance companies. So this reporting has to be done even now by a employee chartered accountant if you become aware about this. So what used to happen was auditor as an auditor as an auditor you were simply what resigning by the companies. So 200 odd audits were resigned in the case of listed entities. 200 odd audits were resigned by the auditor without giving any reasons in the year 2022. So what institute thought what institute thought that IESB, this is what International Ethical Standard Board of Audit, International Ethical Standard Board, this is an international board which implemented this NOCLAR international worldwide. So institute chartered accountancy also thought of implementing the same sort of regulation in India for Indian chartered accountants, for Indian auditors, and even in the case of employee chartered accountants, let alone practicing chartered accountants. So they even anyway they have to report non-compliance with laws and regulation according to SA 250. But employee chartered accountants will now also have to report it the same. So they have tried to implement this worldwide NOCLAR in India, however, in a phased-wise manner. They've tried to implement this in a phased-wise manner. That means what? Now that employee chartered accountant was mentioned in the May 22 material, they bring amendment to this, and now they bring into their purview only senior professional members. So instead of employee chartered accountant, not all employee chartered accountants are covered now. Applicability wise, there are amendments. Now it will be applicable to employee chartered accountant, but these employees are which employees? Senior professional accountants. Senior professional accountants. And who all will come into senior professional accountants? CEO, CFO, if they are a chartered accountant, any director in any major management position, manager, KMP. This was an amendment. The KMP was included in your senior professional accountant definition. So these all these we will see. Similarly, what I was telling, they initially implemented in the case of listed entities. However, through the amendment in May 23, they told what? Not all listed entities it will be applicable. Only listed entities with net worth of 250 crores or more. Net worth of more than equal to 250 crores. All those listed entity only this NOCLAR will apply. Earlier, all the listed entities was applicable, and all the employees were held responsible for complying with this NOCLAR. Now what? Only listed entities with more than equal to 250 CR, their auditors, that is chartered account practice, definitely they will be applicable. The applicability will be there for chartered accountant in practice as well. That means their auditor, and also senior professional accountant. Not all employee, only senior professional accountant. Are we clear with this applicability wise? Is there any doubt? Applicability. So just come last in the last applicability of NOCLAR in India. Let's first see where is it applicable. NOCLAR. So NOCLAR is applicable to all assignments, and to all employer in the case of members in service. However, as per IESB, they have implemented in all the cases. However, ICI, I told you what they are trying to implement phase-wise manner. So now they have applied it to only listed entities, and the shares of which are listed in any recognized stock exchange in India. The share has to be listed in India, in either NSE or BSE, and have a net worth of 250 crores or more. 250 crores or more. This is the first point which you need to be aware about. Secondly, for the members in service, applicability has been restricted to, see, I have omitted this employee. Earlier it was employee. Now for the members in service, the applicability has been limited to senior professional accountants in service of listed entities only. I hope it is clear. Now, in this senior professional accountant, who all can be senior professional accountants? Senior professional accountants could be directors, officers, senior employees, able to exert influence over and make decisions regarding acquisition, deployment, all these decisions, major decisions of the company. Whoever is making the major decisions of the company, if they are a chartered accountant, if they are being held as an employee in the company, yes, they will be counted under senior professional accountant. And now they have included in the amendment specifically KMPs, key managerial persons, right? So you must be aware section 2 clause 53, the definition was there for KMP. I don't remember clause exactly, but yeah, around that 252 or 253, key managerial persons. Yeah, 252 was, I guess, listed entity.
Sir, 251.
CHIJKL. 252 was listed, so yeah, 251 must be there. Maybe. Anyway, so KMPs now they have been included in the senior professional accountant. This was one of the amendment. Whatever mentioned in the green are the amendment. Whatever mentioned in the green are the amendments that was made in May 23 attempt. So applicability, are we clear everyone? This can be asked in MCQ. Applicability wise. Now I have already given you the background of this NOCLAR, why it came, right? So NOCLAR came, however, NOCLAR does not address the personal misconduct. So now suppose Sony is not paying her personal tax, income taxes. So these are personal misconduct. This won't be covered. For NOCLAR, suppose I am working along with Sony in the same company, we are colleagues, and I got to know that Sony is not paying income taxes. Now I am a professional, senior professional accountant. I think that this is a non-compliance of laws and regulation. Yes, this is a non-compliance of laws and regulation, but this is not done by the employer. This is done by your employee, and therefore, and that too is your personal misconduct, not your professional misconduct, which is done by your employer, right? So personal misconduct unrelated to the business activities of the client or the employing organization, your company, it is not related, right? And therefore we need not report the same. It is out of the purview of this NOCLAR. Out of the purview of this NOCLAR. Are we clear? So IESBA, these are the examples that can be covered in the non-compliance with laws and regulation. Could be a fraud, corruption, bribery, goosekhori, money laundering, terrorist funding, proceeds of crime, PAMLA, securities market trading, SACRA, SEBI Act, banking and other financial products, any sort of derivatives you are being dealing into, and there you are manipulating the trades, manipulating the transactions, over the counter derivatives. You are trying to manipulate the terms of the transaction. Data protection, this you came to know about data protection, that the data of the customers of the company are not protected. So you should definitely whistleblow. You should definitely tell this to the regulatory authority of the company in which you are being employed, if you are a senior professional accountant. Similarly, environmental protection, public health and safety. So definitely this can be pointed, this can be think of it as Maggie issue which came. Remember, magnesium content was very high in Maggie, and therefore it was banned for few months. Nestle company. So that's where definitely this was included by Modi ji in the law NOCLAR, because he told that since he so many days he was eating Maggie, this has to be seen specifically, public health and safety. Then tax and pension liabilities payments if it is not being done. All these are examples of non-compliance with laws and regulations. Objective, I told you, read the objective of NOCLAR. So objective, we are clear. I already told you the background, right? So many auditors generally tend to resign without giving any indication that there are frauds happening in the company. So what institute have imbibed on the senior professional accountants itself, that now you have to report. If we come to know about the fact that this fraud happened and you were aware about this, then they could hold you guilty. They could pronounce you as guilty of NOCLAR. Now some important facts about NOCLAR are given. NOCLAR will be applicable if professional accountant encounter or is made aware about non-compliance or suspected non-compliance in the course of providing a professional service to a client. I already told you that you are not required to cover any personal services or any sort of other business other than business services. So professional services are covered. He is not required to investigate nor responsible to complete compliance. That means what? You have to check mota mati. You need to be aware about working knowledge, but not expertise knowledge. You are not required to check the entire compliance, but only need to be ensured that yes, your mind is open to any sort of non-compliance that might happen. So you need to be aware about any non-compliance but you need not check all the compliances, whether this is compliant, this is compliant, this is compliant. No. In your general course of action, in your normal course of duty that you perform as an employee in the company, you become aware about any non-compliance that has to be ensured that it is reported. But it is not your duty to check the compliances. Clear? Secondly, expertise of law is not required. You need to have the working knowledge. Certain matter expressed out of purview, matters that are clearly inconsequential or relating to personal misconduct. This I already told you. Personal misconduct matters or matters relating to other than business matters will not be included. This shall be kept out of the purview of NOCLAR. And disclosure which is contrary to law is not required. Obviously, law if law is not requiring you to disclose, if law mandates you to not disclose, how can you go against law, right? Now comes SA 250 versus NOCLAR. So already I gave you a glimpse of SA 250, right? Where an auditor, while auditing the client, has to also become aware about all those compliances of laws and regulations which are directly affecting the financials, and also about those laws and regulations which, even if not directly affecting, but is indirectly in a way affecting operational wise. So all those laws and regulations has to be considered in SA 250. In NOCLAR, all the laws has to be considered, all the laws. So there in SA 250, you will see that for direct effect wale laws, the procedure performed is different. And similarly for indirect effect wale laws. For direct effect wale laws, you check what all the compliances you check, whether PF has been paid on due date or not, 15th of next month, whether TDS has been deposited by 7th of next month. You will just simply check all the entries, all the details, all the compliances. But for indirect effect value laws, you simply see non-compliances. And how can you see non-compliances without seeing any compliances? That means without checking compliances, you will check only non-compliances. How? We'll just simply inquire with the management. We'll simply inquire with the board. Are there any non-compliances which happened during the year? We could also correspond with the regulatory authorities. Are there any penalties levied by you in this entity? Or are there any late filings being done by the entity? So only non-compliances we have to check in the case of indirect effect wale laws. However, in the case of NOCLAR, you have to perform a homogeneous procedure. So let's see. SA 250 is applicable only on audit, but NOCLAR is, I told you, applicable in all the cases. Even employee chartered accountants in the entity also, NOCLAR is applicable. Correct? So SA 250 is applicable only in audit. First point of difference is what? Scope. Scope wise audit only. But NOCLAR में, however, NOCLAR is applicable on all professional accountants in service in practice. Among those in practice, it applies to auditors as well as professional accountants in service. That means both CA as an auditor as well as employee chartered accountant. Correct? Then SA 250 talks of auditors' responsibility for laws having direct effect on the determination of material amounts and disclosure, and other laws and regulations. These are what? These are indirect effect wale laws. And other laws and regulations that do not have a direct effect, do not have a direct effect on the determination and disclosure in the financial statement. But compliance is a fundamental to the operating aspects of the business. So this is an important line which you also mug up in SA 250. ऐसे डायरेक्ट इफेक्ट वाले लॉस जिनका डायरेक्ट इफेक्ट आता है on the corresponding financial statements. However, those laws which do not have a direct effect, however, are fundamental to the operating activities of the business. However, NOCLAR, while being alike to SA 250 till this point, is further ahead of it. SA 250 से एक स्टेप और आगे है. NOCLAR is SA 250 से एक स्टेप और आगे है. Takes into account non-compliance that causes substantial harm resulting in serious consequences in financial or non-financial terms. Right? So not only you will have to see financial, but also you'll have to see all the non-financial consequences as well. Like example, just what we saw implemented by Modi ji for Maggie. Remember Nestle? So even if it is a non-financial consequence, it is a major consequence, right? Public health and safety, environmental issues, even if it is a non-financial implement, but it is a major cost to be seen by all. Then third point, SA 250 does not define stakeholders. However, NOCLAR clearly specified the stakeholder. NOCLAR stakeholders are investors, creditors, employee, and also general public. Whereas in SA 250, you won't be seeing any stakeholders. You will be seeing that yes, reporting has to be done to the management, reporting has to be done in the case of management or TCWG, then reporting has to be done to the shareholders, and reporting has to be done to the regulatory authorities as well, if required. So fourth point comes to this only, reporting. Reporting has to be done to the regulatory authorities as find appropriate by the NOCLAR. However, in SA 250, no such regulatory authorities reporting specifically is mentioned. You have to mention if you find fit that yes, it should be reported to regulatory authority. But NOCLARs require you to report to the appropriate authority only. And here appropriate authority, I told you, will be where appropriate authority will be regulatory authorities of the entity. For bank, it will be RBI. For insurance, it will be IIDI. For listed entities, it will be SEBI. For Geo, Airtel, it will be for Geo Trio. For Geo, for Airtel, it will be what? Who is the regulatory authority for telecoms?
Try, sir.
TRAI, right? So say that is what they say, that for the NOCLAR you will have to report it to appropriate authority, and appropriate authority would vary case to case basis. It will be regulatory authority. Are we clear till now? So mark this as important. NOCLAR versus SA 250. It can come for 4 marks. I don't know. Right? This you need not be aware about, but yeah, this you also example also. I don't know. I don't expect them to ask this, but yeah, whenever INCI gives you 4, 5, 6 points, you should try to recollect all those points. So revise this as well. This is definitely important. And yes, applicability MCQ wise, I told you. Very, very important. Now the responding to NOCLAR, this also came in your May 23 exam, responding to NOCLAR. In the case of employment, senior professional accountants in service, I told you what? Now the applicability is to whom? Senior professional accountants in service only. So professional accountants other than senior professional accountants in the case of employment. And in the case of audit engagement, responsibility is of whom? Responsibility is of chartered accountant in practice who is doing the audit. Getting this? We are just bifurcated whose responsibility it is to respond. Whose responsibility it is to respond under NOCLAR. In the case of employee, in the case of employment, it will be responsibility of senior professional employment, and other than senior professional employment, it will be also be responsibility of other professional accountants, as and when institute applies these NOCLAR provisions to them as well in a phase-wise manner, right? Similarly, in the case of audit engagement, it will be the responsibility of chartered accountant in practice. So what all steps you have to take?
Sir, this part is not printed on my notes. Responding to nuclear.
You can just insert this then. Steps to be taken for responding. Just these 8 points are there. Steps to be taken for responding. You have to, first of all, you will obtain an understanding of the matter. Where there is a non-compliance of laws and regulation. Where is this non-compliance? Where is this non-compliance? Then
Okay.
after obtaining an understanding, you will try to address the non-compliance. Definitely, right? But suppose if you are not able to address this issue, you will seek help. You will seek advice. After receiving the advice, you are able now to determine whether the further action is required to be taken or not. Whether there requires any further action or not. Now also to determine whether to disclose the matter to an appropriate authority, and I told you who will be the appropriate authority. So you'll determine two things. You'll determine two things. Action to be taken and reporting. Reporting to any regulatory authority to be required or not. Clear? Now after determining this, suppose you are taking a lot of time in determining this reporting or action that need to be taken, but then you need to be wary about the imminent breach. Imminent breach means the breach which is bound to happen immediately in next few days. That means we got to know about a fraud, bribery, or any sort of situation, and now instead of determining this, instead of taking a lot of time in determining all this, we need to be wary about imminent breaches, the breaches which are bound to happen immediately in next few time, or is important, is a sort of threat. So that also we have to assess. And lastly, document all of this has to be documented. So again, let's see. First we will try to obtain an understanding. We'll try to address the matter completely. If at all we are not able to address the matter, then we'll seek advice. And after seeking the advice, we will be required to determine two things: what action we need to take, and also to determine whether we need to disclose the matter to any reporting authority. And lastly, after determination, we need to be wary about imminent breaches and also document the same. चलो 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 8:30. Do you want break?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So we have completed till Noklar. After break, we'll try to start with fees, relative size, and then we'll start with code of ethics. I hope everyone has read and come. ठीक है? So I'll be just trying to emphasize on the important points that could be there, and then we'll try to finish off with the sections of the Chartered Accountants Act. And then if at all you require me to revise, then I'll do so, else we'll then wind up. ठीक है? So let's meet at 8:35 then. Everyone is free today,
Sir,
right? Yeah?
page 400 is also not included in my notes, sir.
Page 400, this fees relative size.
Yes, sir, the PDF I received, it only has
I
399
could
pages.
then given you the PDF of May 23. Then I'll forward you the PDF of November 2023.
Okay, ठीक है सर, ठीक है.
Fees and relative size. Then we'll start with. Let's take a break till 8:35. I hope everyone is free today. So the session might go a bit long. Saturday night, Saturday morning. Chalo now. Last part with respect to fees relative size was left. Let's just cover that. Yeah. So regarding this, what institute wanted you to report was, suppose you are receiving 10 lakh fees entirely from audit, 10 lakh audit fees from all clients. Out of these 10 lakh, 3 lakh 3 lakh was received by you from one client, and rest 7 lakhs from 91 clients. So don't you think this is a major client? Do you think this is our big client? So if he takes away his books of account to be audited with us, if he leaves our firm or do not get his books of account audited with us, then will directly have an impact of 30% in our audit fees. From directly 10 lakh will drop, will get back to 7 lakhs. So therefore ICI wants you to disclose about the same. Why? Because in this case you will not be wanting him to leave your audit firm, right? You will not be willing to leave this client at any cost. So even if you wanted to issue a qualified opinion, suppose, but the client is wanting you to not to issue the same, then you might be get manipulated. So that is why ICI wants you to disclose it the same. Earlier it was with TCWG entities. Matlab, earlier it used to be with the TCWG of this 3 lakh entity. With this TCWG of the 3 lakh entity, I would report it that you are my major client. So that is all I had to report earlier. But now institute has amended this, and now this has to be reported to father of all, that is ICI. Has to be reported to ICAI. And earlier the breach was how much? Earlier the breach was limit was 15% of total fees. Earlier the limit was 15%. Now the limit has changed to 20% or 40%, as the case may be. 40% in the case of non-public interest entities, and 20% in the case of public interest entities. So 40% will be the limit of total fees in the case of non-public interest entities, and in the case of public interest entities for 2 consecutive years, if the gross annual professional fees from audit line represents more than 20% of the total fees of the firm, then you will have to report this to the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. Remember this. This is an amendment. This is an amendment. And then lastly, there are certain exemptions given to you. That means even if this is a 3 lakh entity, still you would not be required to report about the same. Why? Because this might be a government company audit, or this might be an audit of nationalized bank, public financial institution, or where appointments of auditor are made by the government, or appointments are done by the regulator, or appointments of government company, public sector undertakings, PSU. So these entities we don't have to then report to institute. Similarly, if the total fee that is been received by the firm does not exceed 20 lakhs, like in this case, 10 lakhs, 3 lakh was received from one client and 7 lakh was received from rest of the clients. Now in this case, in the eyes of the institute, you are already very small firm, which does not require any sort of regulation by the institute, and therefore do whatever you want. We don't want to regulate you, and you are out of this fee and relative size of the fee regulation. So two exceptions are: one if the total fee is less than or equal to 20 lakhs. Secondly, the exemption resort to government companies, public sector undertakings, nationalized banks, nationalized banks, public financial institution, or appointment by government of India or regulators. Clear? So this is important. Mark this. Can come in November exams.
Sir, it means in case of non-public interest entities, if we have received from one client more than 40%, but the total fees received is less than 20 lakhs, then we don't have to report, na?
No.
Okay, sir.
Are we clear? If yes, then straight away jump to page number 1 of this chapter. Any doubt? Pooja, Dhanlakshmi. So this is the revised code of ethics which was revised recently. I told you this code of ethics include what? All the acts, regulation, guidelines, everything has been compiled in this code of ethics. So now they have divided this code of ethics into 4 parts. Part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. So part 1 deals with all the fundamental principle and the conceptual framework, which includes the framework and is applicable to all chartered accountants. So as far as remembrance wise, I would recommend you to remember only which part is applicable to which chartered accountant. I mean, since part 1 is applicable to all chartered accountants, part 2 is applicable to all chartered accountants in practice. Sorry, all chartered accountants in service. Employee applies to all professional accountants in service, including professional accountants employed, engaged, or contracted in executive or non executive capacity in. For example, in this industry, you are being held as an employee, and also includes individuals who are in public practice but are with the firm. I told you, remember, if you even if you are an employee in a CA firm, can you hold certificate of practice? Which regulation allows you to do so?
Part-time COP.
Huh? Yes, Pavan?
Part-time COP.
No, not part-time COP, full-time COP. I'm telling you. Even if I am an employee in a CA firm, can I hold my COP, certificate of practice? Where have we seen this? Which regulation? Which clause? All this employee. If you are an employee, then you cannot do this. You cannot do this. Where did we see this? If you are a certificate of practice holder, chartered accountant in practice, you cannot be an employee. Straight away, if I want to ask you, if a chartered accountant in practice is also a employee in any company, can he be an employee in any company then? any company corporate? Yes or no? Everyone tell me. If I am a chartered accountant in practice, can I be an employee in any company? We are about to finish the chapter.
No.
No. From where did you confer that? Why? Which clause reference? बोलो भाई. Which clause reference? Clause 11 of part 1 of schedule 1. Clause 11 of part 1 of schedule 1 tells you what? To not to engage in any other business occupation. There in regulation 190A it was mentioned generally permitted activities. It was mentioned that you can be a employee in a CA firm. I told you also that even if you are an employee in a CA firm, it is as good as doing agricultural activity, carrying out agricultural activity. Do you remember it now or not? Still not remembering? Yes, Nupur, Pooja. Are you all listening to me or not? Now coming on to part 1. Part 1 applies to all professional accountants. Part 2 applies to all employee chartered accountants. All employee chartered accountants. Then Part 3 applies to all chartered accountants in practice. So I told you what, I just want you to remember the which part applies to which professional accountants. So part 1 applies to all, part 2 applies to employee chartered accountant. Even if you are an employee in a practicing firm and you are also having a certificate of practice. So what I was relating into, that you can have a COP and you can also be an employee in a CA firm, which is generally permitted by you in regulation 190A. In regulation 190A under clause 11 of part 1 of schedule 1. General permission, this is granted to you, that yes, you can be an employee in a CA firm while also holding COP. Schedule 1 part 1 applies to all chartered accountants in practice, right? So part 2 applies to this chartered accountant in practice who is holding COP but is employee in CA firm. Part 2 applies to that. That is also including those chartered accountants who are employed in a CA firm. Part 3 applies to all chartered accountants in practice, that is having their own practice. And then part 4 is for independence standard, that is standards relating to independence of auditor. Auditor has to see independence requirement, right, before getting themselves as appointed. So now independence standard, there are two types of audit, there are two types of engagement, assurance engagement, you can see. One is assurance engagement, other is non assurance engagement. And in assurance engagement as well, you will see one is reasonable assurance and one is absolute assurance. And now reasonable assurance, there are limited reasonable assurance, like sort of example you must have gone through is in the case of listed entity for interim financial statement, we do what, limited review. So limited, reasonable assurance, absolute assurance, these are like the two types of assurance that we come across. So for that purpose, independence requirement for audit and review engagement, which comes under reasonable assurance, will be done in part 4A. That means part 4A, what is being covered? Independence and requirements for audit and review engagement. And for other assurance engagement other than audit and review engagement, like what we saw, do you remember this SAE 3400? This was what, standard on assurance engagement other than audit and review engagement 3400, which names what, which was name, the name of this standard was, yes, examination of prospective
Prospective
financial
financial
information,
information.
PFI. Examination of PFI, this we saw in clause 3 of part 1 of schedule 2, right? Clause 3 of part 1 of schedule 2, where I have to disclose that the source of information from which I was able to infer this, the assumptions that I took, and that I do not vouch for the accuracy of the forecast, and all the basis of forecast also you have to provide for. So this independence for assurance engagements other than review and audit engagements is covered in part 4B. Are we clear? So part 1, once again everyone, part 1, All in general. All chartered accountants in general. Part 2,
Employees.
employee chartered accountants. Part 3, all
Chartered
chartered
accountants in
accountants
Case in
in
practice.
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 And part 4
Practice.
applies
Practice.
for independent
Independence
standard. Independence,
requirement.
part 4A is with respect to for audit and review engagements, and part 4B is with respect to audit
Assurance
and review
engagement.
Assurance.
engagement, assurance engagement other than audit and review engagement. Clear?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Now we have done fundamental principles. I gave you an homework to go through these fundamental principles. So first one is with respect to integrity. Not to dwell much into this, but it is very much obvious in its sense that we need to be straightforward, we need to be honest, fairly deal with all the clients, and truthfully deal with all the clients, right? Professional accountant shall not knowingly be associated with any of the reports or returns or communication with which he feels that there is a sort of fraudulent or manipulative practice being involved in any sort of report or in any sort of returns being furnished. So you should try to refrain from those associations, or you should try to refrain from those engagements. Should try to try not be knowingly be associated with any sort of reports or returns or communications where the accountant believes that the information is either false or is misleading, or is providing information is provided negligently, or omits or obscure required information. The required information is not provided. Clear? Then objectivity, you already must be aware about this, is what? Biasness should not be there. Conflict of interest should not happen. Any undue influence of opinion should not come. Undue influence means undue influence of client shall not be arise. So this is what with respect to objectivity. Then in professional competence, this is more or less related to we should be having all the knowledge, should be having all the skill sets, so that we can perform all the audits. Required knowledge, required skill set, required personal professional experience, required practical experience, everything should be with us. Professional competence and due care, again not that much important, but what is important is this confidentiality. They can ask you in detail. If you have gone through this, just quickly tell me in what circumstances, confidential information can be disclosed. Of course confidential information cannot be disclosed, right?
Required
All
by
Sir,
law.
chartered
it
accountants,
is
why they are
Required
allowed?
by the
required by
regulator.
the client.
If it is requirement by the regulator, yeah,
Regulator.
Yes, sir.
one is that.
During peer review or quality review.
Peer review or quality review. So I told you one example that we have to submit information to the peer review board or quality review board, and in that case, if they wants us further information, if they want from us further information with respect to the review which is being done, then we also might have to furnish with them the other reports that we did the review. Then other,
To
then
protect our professional interests.
professional interest. To protect our professional interest, right? To protect our professional interest, some sometimes what can happen is client might be pushing on you, or client might be claiming, or client might be blaming on you, right? So in that case, in order to protect your professional interest, you might be required to disclose certain confidential information of the client to protect your professional interest. So see here, last point, following are the circumstances except this, all the confidential information shall not be disclosed. I already emphasized the requirement of confidentiality. Remember which clause relates to confidentiality? Which clause? Confidentiality information shall not be disclosed which the professional accountant encounters.
Second schedule, part 1,
Part 1.
Clause
clause.
1.
So close to
111. 2 was with
1.
respect to examination. Without examination, doctor declared Spider-Man
Dead.
as he has died.
Died.
But before that, what Mary was trying to do, disclose the face of Spider-Man. Remember? So disclose any confidential information which he has encountered during the course of his professional engagement. He should refrain from disclosing the same. Similarly, here also you should not disclose use confidential information either acquired or received as a result of professional or employment relationship, or even if after that relationship has ended, still you cannot disclose those confidential information. However, these circumstances, under these circumstances, you might be required to disclose confidential information. So now disclosure is required by law. First was what the first answer which you all gave. Disclosure is requirement of a regulator. Or suppose example, disclosure is required by law, section 143 subsection 12. So production of documents or other provision of evidence in the course of legal proceedings, right? In the case of suppose there is a requirement by court of law that they want certain documents, then you will have to maybe submit those documents. Similarly, disclosure to the appropriate public authorities of infringements of the law that come to the light. There are been breach in certain laws and that you came to know. So in public interest, you might have to then disclose, and also required by law. It is also required by law. Then similarly, disclosure is permitted by law if it is not required. But in second point, what is happening, even if it is not required by law, but it is also not as if it is prohibited by law. So disclosure, it is not like it is prohibited by law. Law is not prohibiting you to disclose the same, and this information is authorized by the client or the employing organization. So if it is authorized by the client that yes, I can disclose the same, and it is also permitted by the law. It is not required, but it is also not prohibited. In essence, it is permitted by the law. Third one is a professional duty. It is our duty to disclose certain information in certain cases. For example, one you said was peer review board, quality review board might ask a certain information. Another could be section 206 to 229 of the Companies Act. Do you remember which chapter does this belongs to? Section 206 to 229 of Companies Act. It is with respect to inspection, inquiry and investigation. Inspection, inquiry and investigation, in that chapter there is a serious fraud investigation office. There is a another inspector being appointed, investigator can be appointed, and in that case even ROC can ask certain information in the case of investigation inquiry been happening. So inquiry, inspection and investigation, they might require you to disclose certain documents information, and in that case it could be to respond any inquiry or investigation by a professional regulatory body. Similarly, to protect the professional interest of a professional accountant in legal proceeding, what Avija was saying us, right? And lastly, to comply with the technical and professional standards, that is to comply with the professional, ethical and technical standard, PET. Any standard which requires you to disclose this information in your website or in your other platform, then to comply with this professional, ethical and technical standard, yes, we might be required to disclose the same. So we will try to revise again where all we need to disclose the information. First was required by law. Second, it is permitted by law. First was required by law. Second is permitted by law and permitted by the client. It has to be also permitted by the client also, right? And third one was with respect to in my professional duty, I need to disclose. It is my professional duty to disclose, particularly in four cases. For four examples they have given. Example one, peer review, quality review board, they might ask certain information. Inquiry, inspection, investigation, they might ask you certain information. Then in your professional interest, to protect your professional interest, and fourthly, lastly, to comply with professional, ethical and technical standards. Clear? These are cases where we might be required to disclose the confidential information. Institute might frame a question for 4 marks and ask you directly. Clear? That is why I emphasized on this. Now then that you need to disclose the information, now then that you need to disclose these all these cases, you need to disclose the information. Therefore, in deciding whether we need to disclose confidential information, professional accountant should consider the following 4 points. So again, a question can be framed by the institute that once you are required by law or permitted by law or client to disclose the confidential information, what all points you should consider before disclosing. What points you should consider before disclosing? This can be a question which can be framed by the institute, right? For 4 marks. So first of all, you need to see that whose all interest will be prejudiced. Whose all interest will be prejudiced. That means what? You need to be aware about the fact that after disclosing these facts, after disclosing this information, the interest of these parties will be prejudiced, and therefore I need to be wary of the way I am disclosing the same. So whether interest of any party, including third parties whose interest might be affected, could be harmed, is there any other party whose interest could be affected? Similarly, whether all the relevant information is known to me before disclosure, you should be aware that yes, you are in yourself knowing everything. You must be heard of this, right? it is better to have no information than to have half information, right? So before disclosure, you should be aware about the fact that you are already knowing all information before disclosure. Thirdly, the proposed type of communication. How are you going to communicate and to whom are you going to communicate? How are you going to communicate and to whom are you going to communicate? And lastly, the parties to whom the communication is addressed are the appropriate recipients of this information or not. It should not happen that the party to whom you intended to report and the one to whom you communicated is different party, right? So the same party should be, the same appropriate party should be same. So again, let's revise these 4 points. Let's revise this 4 point. First was what with respect to what, where the interest, whether there by disclosure of this confidential information, are we like disclosing, and by disclosing this confidential information, is there any party of whom the interest is being getting prejudiced? Secondly, with respect to what, whether do we know all the relevant information available to us, all the relevant information, is it available to us or not? Similarly, the type of communication and the recipient, and whether the communication is being done to the appropriate recipient or not. Are we clear with these two set of question? Might come for 4 marks. Two set of questions. One is when are we required to disclose confidential information, and second one is, are we, if at all we are required to disclose the confidential information, what all points need to be considered before disclosure? Yes or no? Then professional behavior is nothing much. You can just go through that. Professional accountant is in doubt about whether a form of proposed advertisement is appropriate. The accountant is encouraged to consult it with ESB of ICI. Whenever in doubt, whenever in doubt, go to ESB. Okay. Now, threats and evaluation of threats and safeguards. So, what all threats are we studying? What all threats are we gonna study here? 5 threats. Self,
Self-interest, right?
Self-review
self-interest,
threat,
Self-review threats,
self-review
advocacy
threat,
threats,
Advocacy threat.
familiarity.
advocacy, familiarity threat,
advocacy threat, familiarity threat, and
Intimidation.
intimidation
intimidation,
threat.
right? So we'll go through the examples of each thread. I want you to learn the examples of all these thread, because I think institute can frame a question vice versa. I mean reverse question. They will give you one this thread and they will ask you which thread does this belongs to: self review, self interest, advocacy, or familiarity, or intimidation. Getting this? What type of question an institute ask in an MCQ? So I want you all to learn this. At the same time, I will also help you in learning this. What my focus here is specifically exam focus. Here in this, I know everyone might be able to understand, right? But just by simply going through this, must be aware about this now. There all the thread. What does it mean, and how we can avoid it? What all actions need to be taken to in order to eliminate the threats, to subsidize the threat, and the safeguards that might be required. What my focus here would be to help you learn the same, learn the exam, and also let's try to predict certain questions that might come, right? Okay. So the first is what, self-interested. So here the focus is financial interest. Directly you are interested in the entity. Directly you are interested in the entity. So having a direct financial interest in a client, that means you are holding 25% shareholding. Suppose example, 25% shareholding, direct financial interest is there. Any undue dependence on the total fees from a client. Just now we saw one example, right? Undue dependence. Out of 10 lakhs, 3 lakhs you are receiving from one client. Getting this? Then having a close business relationship. Mark the word close, business relationship. I'll be giving you one few examples and you will have to fill the same. 2 minutes test. 2 minutes test I'll give you. So having a close business relationship with a client. Then the fourth one is concerned about the possibility of losing a client. So now that you have done the audit, you feel that there is a possibility that I might lose a client. And here what you feel is that it is not because client is threatening me, it is something which is coming out from myself. The concern is coming out from within, that I might lose this client. I might lose this client, and this will come in self-interest threat, because the concern is coming from within you, and now you are concerned about what you might be concerned financially. If I lose this client, it will be a huge loss for me, right? So if I lose this client, it can be a loss. This concern is coming out from within, and therefore it will be what? Self interest threat. If the client is threatening you that I will leave, now you are being threatened by the client that you will be losing this client, then it will come where?
Intimidation threat.
Intimidation.
Intimidation.
Right? So just mark the few difference in the wording itself. They can play, or they won't be playing at all, but they will directly picking any of the example and will be giving you. So we need to be logically be sure why this point is coming in which thread. Clear? So concern about the possibility of losing a client, then potential employment with a client. So suppose Dhanlakshmi is going to audit of, suppose, any finance company, and now that finance company is very much impressed with Dhanlakshmi's work, and now is offering Dhanlakshmi an employment. Dhanlakshmi told that okay, after clearing exam, I will come directly in your office. I'll leave my CA firm. I'll directly join you. So Dhanlakshmi is seeing a potential employment opportunity with the company, and therefore she might not report the same, because there is now a self-interest threat. Dhanlakshmi is associating itself with the company. Interest is coming out, right? So self-interest threat is there for Dhanlakshmi, because she is, might get employed in that company, and therefore she might not report the same. Something suspicious. And then having access to confidential information of the client that might be used for the personal gain. Again, for my gain it can be a self-interest rate. For personal gain, if I can use that confidential information, then it will be what? A self-interest rate. So let's try and learn these points. So one is with respect to business relationship. There is a lot of financial dependence in any business relationship. There is a lot of financial dependency between each other, right? So in a business relationship there is a financial dependence, because of which client, we are losing our client. There is lot of financial dependency with each other, because of which we are losing the client, and also losing our potential employment. And also the potential employment with the client looks unfeasible now, and therefore now we will have to resort to personal gains through disclosure of confidential information only. Since we are not able to get the benefit out of potential employment, we are not able to get the benefit from the client, we are losing the client, therefore we will have to resort to personal gains. We'll have to resort to personal gains from the confidential information. Thereby we are covering all points. Once again, if you will try to remember, try to recollect, business relationship, lot of financial dependency is there, and we might because of this lose client, or we might also lose the potential employment opportunity. So in order to resort to personal gains, we will have to resort to personal gains by disclosure of confidential information. Clear? Yes or no? So you might just have read the same, but again, here my focus is make you all also remember the points within each and every thread. So you'll also have to focus accordingly. So circumstances that might create self-interest threat. Are we clear?
Yes, sir.
So now comes self-review threat. So what is the major implication here? Self-review threat. I'll just give you a simple example. Suppose I was a director in a company. Then I only prepared the financial statements of that company for quarter four, fourth quarter, that is Jan to March 2023, Q4 FY23, quarter 4 FY23, that is Jan to March. I only prepared the financial statements as a director. Now I resigned in April and joined in a partnership firm. And now, if at all, suppose I have been appointed as an auditor of the company, or suppose after 1 year I have been appointed as an auditor, even in that case, also corresponding figures will have to be checked. So suppose I have been appointed as an auditor for that company, I'll be checking my own financial statement which I prepared. Do you think I will be pointing out any mistakes? Do you think I'll be pointing out any mistakes which might occur in the financial statement which is prepared by me and I am the checker,
No, sir.
No.
right? So this is a basic internal control, maker checker internal control, that the maker who is making the reports or statements should not checked by a separate independent individual, right? So if I am the one who is prepared the statement and I am the one only checking, then that will tantamount to self review thread. So see that a thread that a professional accountant will not appropriately evaluate the results of a previous judgment made or an activity performed by the accountant or by another individual within the accountant's firm or employing organization. Getting this? An activity performed by the accountant. What activity? Financial statement preparation. FS preparation performed by me. Performed by me. Performed by the accountant or by another individual within the accountant's firm, on which the accountant, that means on which CA Yash will rely when forming a judgment. Now I am giving an opinion. I am expressing an opinion on those financial statements. Getting this? So this is tantamounting to self-review thread. So here all the examples that you will see now, you can also resolve like this. Also example reflects self-interest thread. However, we will have to learn this as self-review thread because we'll think it that way. We'll think that suppose in this way a loan to an assurance client. If I have given a loan to an assurance client or to any of its directors or officers, then I will think in this way that if I have given a loan to them and suppose the interest has not been paid on timely basis or there is no interest payment or no timely installments payment, then I need to report the same. But since I have given the loan to any assurance client or any of my directors or officers, then I might not report because it is my loan only. It is my loan only, and therefore I might not report. Suppose example, they have given me extra interest. They have given extra interest. Instead of giving 9% interest, they by mistakenly gave me 10% interest. Will I report? No. So that is coming to be self-interested. However, we'll think of it as self-review thread because that is something which I am involved in it. I am also involved in this, and therefore I am reviewing the same. I am involved in, and I am also reviewing the same thing which I am involved in. Getting this? So self-review thread. A professional accountant holding a financial interest in or receiving a loan or guarantee from. Again, same point. I am being involved in giving a financial interest, guarantee, loan, and I am only checking the same. Clear? Then a professional accountant participating in incentive compensation arrangement offered by the employee. So suppose when I go to suppose in a any example you can take of any company where they do what, if you are in the organization from 10 to 7, then you will be getting the normal remuneration, suppose 5,000 per day. But suppose if you stay after 8, suppose if you stay after 8, then you will be also getting 2,000 extra, or you will be getting any food allowances or any sort of incentive compensation arrangements is there. And I am also involved in this incentive compensation. I am the employee. I am also involved in this. And suppose now I have been told to do the internal audit of this company. And now I know that what I used to do, I used to tell that okay, suppose me and Sony were in same company. I used to do what? I used to leave by 6 p.m. But I used to leave with Sony my identity card. And I will tell Sony that okay, while punching log out, Sony also log out my ID card. So it will automatically reflect in the system as if I have logged out at 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. So this is a thing which I already knew, but since I'll be checking the same about myself, I won't be reporting. So again, this is a kind of sort of self-review thread, reviewing this thing which I am involved in. Correct? Then a professional accountant having access to corporate assets for personal use. So there are so many laptops which were kept in a my previous organization. Also, there were so many laptops. If at all the IT guy took one of the laptop and gave to his children to play, will anyone come to know? No, right? And after it is being used, he will dispose of the same. He will sell it off, or he can just bring it back to the company. So this is a case again. If I am doing the same, if as an auditor, as an internal auditor, suppose I am also doing the same, I am also involved with the IT guy. I got to know about this that IT guy is doing the same, and now my son is also wanting the same. So I'll also tell the IT guy that okay, I will not report your manipulation, but I will also wanting be one laptop. So will I report? No. Any sort of corporate asset used for personal use. Then professional accountant being offered a gift from special treatment from a supplier. So suppose supplier of the company has to, we have to make payment to the supplier, right? So I told supplier as an internal auditor, don't worry, I'll ensure that the company pays to you upfront. Don't worry that. Just do one thing, take care of my pocket. Take care of my pocket, give some gifts or certain some or the other arms or other gifts to me. I'll take care of your payment. So this is where again I am involved as a personal capacity, and again I won't be pointing out the same while reviewing, while auditing. So self reviewing is the kind of a threat where I am being involved in it, and I am also reviewing the same. I am only the one who is reviewing the same. Clear? So again, all these points will have to clearly differentiate with self-interest threat, and therefore let's learn all the points from given example in self-review threat. So loan to CDO. CDO is what? Director officer, client director officer. Loan to client director officer. Loan to client director officer. Why? Because if we give loan to client director officer, there is an incentive compensation arrangement which we have to participate. They have to participate in this, and therefore they have to give it as a loan to client director or any officer. And this loan, the interest on this loan, the guarantee, what we were getting instead of interest, we were getting personal assets, we were getting corporate assets. Instead of interest, they were giving us the corporate asset, used corporate assets for personal use. And what I used to do from those assets which I used to receive as an interest on loan, I used to gift those assets to my relatives. That is what we do, right, Son Papdi? Whatever comes to us, we also forward it to other relatives. So whatever asset I got for my personal use for as an interest on loan, I forwarded it to my relative as a gift. So in an essence, you can try to recollect all the points. Loan to loan to client or director or officer. See, this is not a direct financial interest. Although this is a financial interest, return financial interest, but this is not a direct financial interest. I told you direct financial interest was with respect to when you are being employed or when you are holding certain ownership in the company. Clear? So loan to client director officer because of entering into certain compensation, incentive compensation arrangement and participate. And for this loan, for the interest on loan, I was getting what? Corporate asset for personal use, and which I used to gift it to other relatives. So you'll tend to get loan to client director officer first point, then financial interest, incentive compensation arrangement. This third point, incentive compensation arrangement. Then for this interest on this loan, financial interest on this loan, I was getting what? Access to all the corporate asset for my personal use, and I was gifting it the same to other persons. Clear? Yes or no? Now let's come to advocacy threat. Advocacy threat is somewhat where you are involved into, but you are also defending the same. You are now been employed to defend something which you were involved into. Getting this? You have been employed by the entity to defend a case, and in that case, you were the one who prepared the financial statement. You were the one who prepared, who submitted with the income tax authorities. So suppose now the income tax department has issued a show cause notice or scrutinized the case, and the case has been filed, and now the client asks you only to represent the employer or represent the client in front of tax authorities, and you know that you only had made the financial statements. Do you think you be advocating in a proper manner? No, right? You already know that these financial statements are prepared by me, so if at all there was any mistake, I will try not to disclose the same to the ITD. Similarly, another case was, suppose there is an IPO coming. So within an IPO, DHRP, draft red herring prospectus, DRHP, or any sort of prospectus that the company will be filing with SEBI, they will also have to file last 3 years financial statements. So suppose you were only employed with the preparation of this financial statement or auditing of this financial statement, and now you are aware about the fact that after 2 or 3 years, I already know this Oyo will be coming out with an IPO in next 2 to 3 years. So now I am the financial statement auditor of the Oyo, and I know after 2 to 3 years this will be coming out for IPO. So I also know that this IPO assignment might come to me, and it would be easy for me to report the financials accordingly that suits the public interest at that point of time. That means to exaggerate revenue or inflate the asset or whatever sort of things which might seem very feasible when the IPO actually comes out in the public, and it is a rosy picture in the eyes of public. So I might be involved in those kind of activity, and I know that I will be advocating the same financials when the IPO will be coming in front of SEBI. So again, there might be a chances that I will not be acting unbiasedly. I will not be acting objectively. And therefore, you will see here what advocacy threat is. What the threat that a professional accountant will promote a client's or employing organization position to the point that accountant's objectivity is compromised. So, first example, promoting shares in an entity when that entity is a financial statement audit client. Just now, OYO example. That I know that this is a financial statement audit client. Yes, but I know that in 2 to 3 years time they will go to for an IPO, they will go for a public offering, and I know that my department, one of my firm's department, they also provide these services, and therefore I know that if I report correctly now, I might be getting the if I report somewhat a bit rosy pictures, I might get the assignment of this public offer to file all the documents, red herring prospectus, DHRP, all these prospectus and documents with the SEBI. And then acting as an advocate on behalf of assurance client in litigation or disputes with third party. Similarly, lobbying in favor of legislation on behalf of your client. So all these are my advocacy threat. So advocacy threat, it is not that difficult to grasp or to learn, right? It is easy that you are already a client and now you are lobbying in favor of that client. You are fighting for that client. You are representing that client, or you are promoting the shares of that client who is also your financial statement audit client. Now come to familiarity threat. So now familiarity threat is what? Having a close or immediately family relationship with the director or officer. Or suppose example, one of my former partner of the firm, that means one of the former partner of the firm left the firm and joined one company corporate, and now that corporate audit has come to me. So don't you think that director must be very much accustomed to the firm and will not be an independent, the firm will not be independent auditor of that company, right? Similarly, a member of the engagement team having a close or immediate family relationship with an employee of the client who is in position to directly influence or exert such influence. Dadaji, Dadaji hai ye. Or you can also see long association of an audit team member with the audit client. One Dadaji is coming since for 10-15 years for the purpose of getting his books audited. Long association has been created with this client, and therefore we might get familiarity threat. I know that okay, this people or this old guy will not be manipulating his books of account. He doesn't have something to manipulate. He is not that much interested. He just wants his books of accounts to be audited. That's it. So there might come a familiarity threat. I might get certain prejudiciousness towards the client, right? And lastly, intimidation threat, where the client is saying, okay, तू मेरे को qualify करेगा? रुक तेरे को बताता हूँ. If you are going to qualify my audit report, let me tell you, I won't be coming next time onwards. So intimidation being threatened with dismissal or replacement in relation with the client engagement, being feeling pressured to agree with the judgment of a client because the client has more expertise than the matter. Client has more expertise than you. How can this be so? Suppose you all, many of you after clearing chartered accountant will be joining your father's business. Let's say. Now suppose Sagar's father is already into iron and steel, and after clearing chartered accountancy, he also joined the iron and steel business. He is already aware about iron and steel, and now I am doing the audit of Sagar iron and steel business. Now Sagar is telling, okay, don't you tell me. I am also chartered accountant. In fact, I know much more than iron and steel industry than you. So I am getting intimidated that the client knows or is an expert much more than me, right? So this is also an intimidation threat, being feeling pressured to agree with the judgment of a client. Why? Because Sagar told me that he is more expertise in the matter in question. Now similarly, being informed that a planned promotion will not occur unless the accountant agrees with an inappropriate accounting treatment. So suppose Avija is working below me, and Avija day and night she gave for this audit for this client. Day and night she worked and came out with so many findings. And now with all these findings, I talked with the client I had a direct connection with the client. I talked with the client. Client told me, don't report all these points. And I had to some way agree to the client. And now that I am telling Avija that okay, please do not report these points. Avija is not adhering it to me. Avija is telling, why not? I have given my day in and out. I have given my heart and soul for this work. I will be reporting the same. So now I am telling what Avija, okay, your promotion is due this month. It will be now due in next to next year. So that is a kind of intimidation that I am doing with Avija, right? So promotion will not occur unless the accountant agrees with an inappropriate accounting treatment. So this is also an intimidation threat. I hope everyone is clear. So quickly go through this telegram. I have uploaded one pic. 2 minute test, 2 minutes test. I have uploaded this 6 points. So just quickly tell me first point, which threat will it be related to? Self-interest, self-review, intimidation, familiarity, advocacy, direct financial interest in a client, second point. Third point is close business relationship. Fourth point is close immediate relationship. Fifth point is possibility of losing a client. Sixth point is threat of dismissal or replacement by a client. So first point, professional accountant having financial interest in employing organization. Professional accountant having financial interest in employing organization. Tell me which threat?
Self-interest.
Self-review test.
Self-interest, sir.
Self-interest, sir.
Self-review.
Professional accountant having financial interest in employing organization. Go to self-review threat. First example. Second example. I told you just now there is no direct financial interest in self-review threat. You are indirectly interested. So first will be professional accountant having financial interest. There is a financial interest. But when they see direct financial interest, then it will come in self-interest threat. Self-interest threat का first example देखो. See first example of self-interest
Direct
threat.
financial.
So second question, direct financial interest in a client. It will be now
Self-interest.
Self-interest.
self-interest. Any doubt in first two? Refer self-review if in case of any doubt.
Close business.
Yes, Dhanlakshmi, do you have any doubt?
No, sir.
Clear? Then tell me for answer for third, close business relationship, Dhanlakshmi. Close business relationship,
Familiarity threat.
familiarity threat. Think again. Think again. Yes, everyone else?
Self-interest.
Self-interest test.
Self-interest threat.
Self-interest threat.
Self-interest.
If they give you
Self-interest
close
threat.
family
Sorry.
relationship, if they give you close family relationship, family association, close relationship, then it will come to familiarity threat. If it is a close business
It's
relationship, then you are
familiarity threat.
financially interested. Direct financial interest. Okay. Lastly, fifth point is possibility of losing a client.
Self-interest.
Intimidation.
Self-interest.
Intimidation. Who was there? Intimidation threat. Yes, intimidation threat. Correct or not? So possibility of losing a client. You are concerned yourself. Within yourself, you are concerned that you might
Intimidation.
lose a client. If I lose my client tonight, it will be my loss. Do you remember this song? If I lose myself tonight, it will be by your side. Lose myself tonight. So if I lose my client, it will be my loss. So this is a concern which is coming out from within, and therefore this is a self-interest threat. You are concerned about money. Whenever you are thinking of money, then go to self-interest. And similarly, when client is intimidating to you, that they will replace you, they are intimidating the same, then it will come to intimidation threat. Are we clear?
Threat.
What sort of question can come? Reverse question, right? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So now
Yes,
come
sir.
to evaluation of threats. So firstly, we will try to evaluate whether this threat that we are seeing, self-interest or self-review threat, whatever threat we are seeing it in front of ourselves, we need to evaluate whether this is a threat which is at an acceptable level. That means we can accept that much amount of threat. We have a certain level by which we can accept that much amount of threat. So firstly, we will have to evaluate whether can we accept that much level of threat first. Secondly, we have to do RITPT. What is RITPT? Reasonable and informed third party test. RITPT is nothing but reasonable and informed third party test. That in this test, what we do, if suppose I am getting these threats, self interest, self review, intimidation, or any sort of thing, then I'll simply do what? I'll ask Nikita, yes, Nikita, if you were in my place, would you have done the same thing? Would you have been done the same reasonable point and informed? If I tell you, if I give all the information to Nikita, informed third party. Now Nikita is informed third party, and Nikita has to now apply her brains and give her reasonable opinion. If she was in my place, would she have accepted the audit, or would she have continued with the engagement or not? So I have to do what? RITPT. Asking any third person, informing her or informing him completely, that is informed third party, and then she asking a reasonable opinion from her, if she was in my place or if he was in my place, whether they would do the same as I am doing. RITPT. Clear? And thirdly, addressing the threat. So either we can eliminate the threat. How can you address the threat? Either you can eliminate the threat, that means how? Either you can end the relationship, that relationship that you were having with the client, you can simply cut off the transaction or any sort of threat that you were having. Either you can eliminate that relationship or threat. Secondly, if not, you are not able to eliminate, then you can apply the safeguards to reduce the threat to an acceptable low level. You can either eliminate the threat completely. If not completely, then you can apply the safeguards to reduce the threat to an acceptable level by which you can accept the engagement. And thirdly, if at all you are not able to do so, then you will simply decline the engagement. If you're not able to remove the interest threat or any sort of threats, and you are also finding that this is not at all an acceptable level of threat, it is much above than that, you'll simply have to what? Refrain from the engagement. Clear? Now, what all actions can you do to eliminate the threat? Threat might be addressed by eliminating the circumstances. That means the circumstances because of which the threat created, just eliminate the same. The transaction, the contract which had, just nullify the contract or eliminate the contract, whatever you can do to eliminate the circumstance because of which the threat created. However, there can be situation where this threat cannot be removed. You cannot simply remove a relationship, right? Just because my brother is a director there, and now I want to eliminate this relationship so that I can accept the audit engagement. Will I do so? That eliminate the bhai bhai relationship. Now, no, you are no more my brother. I have to do the audit. So sorry. So there could be a circumstances where I cannot eliminate this relationship, eliminate the circumstances, and therefore in that case, I will have to reduce the threat to an acceptable low level, or I will have to refrain from engagement, refrain from the engagement. Now, lastly, come to the safeguards. Safeguards. What all safeguards you can apply so that the threats are reduced to an acceptable low level, or the threats do not arise at all. Okay. So first safeguard is to assign additional time and qualified personnel to required tasks when an engagement has been accepted might address a self-interest threat. So wherever you feel self-interest threat is there, you need to give and address it with more time, more staff, more resources. Employ more and more resources. Whenever you feel there is a self-interest. Why? Because I am having the interest, but others might not be having that interest, right? So they might be in a better place to express their opinion. So I need to employ much more resources, much more time and resources in the case of self-interest threat. Similarly, having an appropriate reviewer in the case of self-review, I should not review it. Instead, I should appoint another reviewer to review the done reporting which is done by me. So having an appropriate reviewer who was not a member of the team review the work performed by advise as necessary might address a self-review threat. This will address the self-review threat. I should not review. Instead, it should be reviewed by some person else within the firm, but is not related to me, neither it is related to the client. Independent. Review of the work performed or advisory as necessary might address. Those are not member of the team. Similarly, using different parameters and engagement teams. Now suppose in the in a big firms, generally what used to happen, there are other different lines. So audit line will be different, taxation line will be different, auditing partner will be different, taxation partner will be different. So auditing partner will ask taxation partner to please review. Auditing partner can ask a different line of partner, or a different line, different partners, or different engagement teams to review. Getting this? Different reporting lines, you can ask the partner of different reporting line of taxation, you can ask that partner to please review the my work, please review my work. You can also involve another firm to review the same. You can also employ another firm to perform review, again re-examine, re-perform. All this you can employ another firm of chartered accountants to do. And lastly, separating teams when dealing with the matters of confidential nature. So there are certain, like just now I told you, ICICI Direct equity research firm. So they also have an IB department. So investment banking department is the work is to do what? Investment banking department, the work is to do dalali, commission business. They will, any buyer or any seller, they will try to aggregate them. Suppose I'm enough done with all the businesses and everything, I now want to sell my business, and any of the buyers are there in the world. So I am not aware about the buyers. Buyers are not aware about the sellers of the kind of business that they want to buy. So I will go to investment banker. Sellers will also come to investment banker. Buyers will also go to them, and in a sense, they will try to merge the buyers and sellers, and thereby charging commission in between. Dalali, nothing but dalali ka business. Investment banking. So their investment banking and equity research. Here we need to create a wall in between them, because if the report goes to here or this report comes here, then there could be a conflict of interest. Investment banking might not issue a good report to one of the seller if they got to know about the equity research report that the buyer is not very much healthy, showing healthy performance or any sort of debt. So getting this, there could be a conflict of interest if you come across any information which you were not supposed to know from another department. So that is what they are saying, that separating teams with dealing with the matters of a confidential nature might address a self-interest threat. They might address a self-interest threat. So how can we learn this? See, it's easy, very easy. It can be a sequence wise. First, you have to give what? Additional time. You have to give additional time and resources, but we don't have that much time, right? Do we have additional time? No. So then we'll appoint a reviewer. But now then the reviewer is also not willing to do the work for us. Reviewer is also not having enough time. So then we will tell a different partner or a different engagement team of a different reporting line to review. But then the partner is also not accepting. Then we will employ another firm of chartered accountant. If no one is listening, then we'll resort to go to another firm of chartered accountant. And since we went to outside organization, we went outside the firm, therefore we also need to adhere to the confidentiality. We also need to adhere to the confidentiality point. That means separating the teams within which the confidential informations are shared. Clear? It's easy to remember. I don't have additional time and I don't have qualified personnel. Therefore, I went with reviewer. But the reviewer also denied. So I went with Dusra partner, second partner. But the Dusra partner, second partner also denied. So I did what? I went with another firm of chartered accountants. But since I am going with another chartered accountancy firm, therefore I also need to adhere to the confidentiality requirement. It's easy. Safeguards. This came for 5 marks. Jan 21. Even though in Jan 21 this was not even in the syllabus. This was removed in November 19 or May 19 and was implemented from July 21. But they asked in Jan 21. ठीक है? Based on your presumptive knowledge of IPCC. Are we clear till now? Any doubt? Nupur Suneshwaran?
Clear, sir. No doubts.
No doubt. So let's just then try to finish off the last portion of this chapter, which is with respect to certain provisions of the Chartered Accountants Act, certain sections of Chartered Accountants Act 1949. And this is also important because any violation in here will attract which clause? Any violation in here will attract which clause? Which schedule? Which part?
Schedule 1, Schedule one,
Second
part
schedule,
two.
part 2, clause 1.
Schedule 2, Part 2, Clause 1. Right? CA in practice shall be deemed to be guilty of, sorry, CA whether in practice or not shall be deemed to be guilty of professional misconduct if he is violating any of the provisions of the Chartered Accountants Act or any regulations thereunder made thereunder or any of the guidelines issued by the council. Clear? So first section is with respect to section 2, clause 2, not subsection 2 but clause 2. Section 2, clause 2, which deals with what? Members deemed to be in practice. So institute is aware how much clever you are. So suppose what happened was Sashi, after clearing her chartered accountancy exam, obtained certificate of practice. But before obtaining COP, she did what? Since after obtaining COP, I'll be guilty of misconduct if I do the advertisement, right? If I do all the advertisement about my firm and about my practice, I'll be starting my practice in my office here, address, Falna, Dikna, and all the newspaper, everything. I'll be held guilty under clause 6, 7 of part 1 of schedule 1. Therefore, I should do what? Instead of obtaining COP, before only I should advertise, because schedule 1 part 1 is applicable only to certificate of practice holders, right? COP holders. So this will not apply to me, and I'll be able to advertise, and once the client starts coming, I'll be obtaining COP once I am done with my work, and then once I need to sign, I'll obtain the COP. So that was the plan of Shashi, but that plan was all in vain because institute already knew her minds. Sharp brains. Therefore, they told what? A moti shall be deemed to be in practice. They shall be deemed to be in practice when individually or in partnership with chartered accountants in practice or in partnership with members of such other recognized professions as may prescribe in consideration of remuneration who engages in the practice of accountancy, offers to perform. Shashi offered to perform in her advertisement, right? She is offering, right, the services. She offered to perform or perform services involving auditing, verification of financial transaction books, accounts or records, or the preparation, verification or certification of financial accounting. All the services which a chartered accountant performs, practicing services. Even if you offers to perform, you will be deemed to be in practice. And if you do not have a COP, when you are practicing, you are deemed to be in practice and you do not have a COP, then section 6 will get attracted. Section 6 will get attracted. That means COP. You need to obtain COP. We also saw this question in clause 1 of part 2 of schedule 2. Do you remember? Where instead of, even if we did not have COP, we issued a certificate. We issued a network certificate without having a COP. Do you remember this? I told you there that section 6 reference will come. So without having a COP, you are deemed to be in practice. And if you are offering, even if you are offering to perform these practicing services, you are engaged in this professional accountancy services, then you will be held to be deemed to be in practice. Section 2, clause 2. Clear? Are we clear? Just go through this section 2, clause 2. Then we'll start with section 2, clause 2, subclause 4, 224. Remember this, very, very important to quote this section. In the case of permitted management other consultancy services. So what all management and consultancy services is permitted? What all management and consultancy services is permitted? So these are the sort of services which is a management consultancy services and is permitted by a chartered accountant to perform. So whenever you revise, try to revise as if this is a kind of something which the institute doesn't want you to retain, but they will directly give it to you a question and you will be able to recall, yes, this is a kind of service which was permitted by the council to perform as a management consultancy. So if you are engaged in financial management planning, financial policy determination, that means what? FP&A. You must be aware about this job profile, FP&A. Capital structure planning. What should be the debt to equity ratio? Working capital management, how much should be current asset, how much should be current liability, how much should be cash, how do we manage the cash, how much should be debtors, how much should be my debtors receivable periods, inventory turnover ratio, how much it should be, turnover period, how much it should be, all these things, working capital management. Prepare project report, feasibility study, whether this product which I am coming out with will be feasible in the market or not, will I be able to grab the market or not, all this. Preparing cash budget, cash flow statement, profitability statement, budgeting, preparing budget, revenue budget, capital budget, inventory management, putting up cameras in the storehouse, warehouses, managing the inventory in and out, whether it is being performed properly or not, in and out of the inventory, right? Market research, demand studies, price fixation. You have been employed to fix the price of a product, how much price this the product should charge. Management accountancy services, control method, personal recruitment and selection. This came one time. Personal recruitment and selection. You have been employed for personal recruitment selection. Can a chartered accountant provide such service? Yes. Section 224. 224. 2 plus 2 4. ठीक है. So setting up executive incentive plans, wage incentive plans, management and operational audit. This is a separate chapter which we will study in a CA final audit later part of the syllabus. Valuation of shares also you can do. Business policy, corporate planning, all this policy planning, procedures planning, everything you can draft. Organization structure, behavior, development of human resources, system analysis, system designing, computer related services, selection of hardware, development of software. Then these are important. Acting as advisor or consultant to an issue. So any IPO or FPO it is coming, you can become an advisor to an issue, advisor to the IPO, or consultant to the IPO or FPO. Advisor to an issue or consultant to an issue. What does the role of these entities, advisor or consultant to an IPO, FPO? Yes, what is the role? Hmm? So advisory to an IPO or consultant to an IPO will advise you regarding how much ad you should make for you to not go unsubscribed, or under subscription should not happen, instead over subscription should happen. So how much should you add, what all should be included in your DRHP, what should be the issue price, centers for holding services, conferences of broker investors, bankers to an issue, who will all be the bankers who will be collecting the application money, allotting the shares, and if not allotted, refunding the application money. Everything has to be done now. So you have to appoint a merchant banker, all the bankers to an issue have to be appointed. Collection of the end centers, collection centers where the application money will be collected. Brokers to an issue, who will be the lead broker, who will be the other brokers, merchant brokers. Similarly, underwriter, who will be my underwriter if at all the issue goes under subscription, who underwrites that, he underwriter underwrites to buy the unsubscribed portion, unsubscribed portion of the issue. Clear? So all this I can provide the information, all this I can help with. If I am an advisor to an issue or consultant to an issue, I can draft the prospectus, I can draft the DRHP. Similarly, I can prepare all these publicity budgets statements. I can advise regarding selection of various agencies. I can advise on post issue activities. Now one thing, quickly tell me all, do you think a chartered accountant can go to pub? Can a chartered accountant go to pub? What do you think, in your
Yes,
opinion?
sir. Yes. Yes, sir. He may go.
But should he go?
Depends on him.
So according to me, a chartered accountant should not go to pub. What do you mean by pub? This portfolio management, underwriting, and B for broking. So chartered accountant shall not be allowed to do these activities. This is very, very important. If at all a question is coming from section 224, 90% of the time this is the only question which comes. Portfolio management, underwriting, broking service. Chartered accountant is engaged in this activity. Portfolio management, underwriting, broking. These three activities chartered accountant shall not be involved. Clear? So from now on, or not from now on, after you clear chartered accountancy, will you go to pub? No, everyone. Saturday night hai today, so you can enjoy today, but no more Saturday Sunday nights after you clear your examinations. ठीक है? So investment counseling also you can do, that which stocks to buy, which stocks not to buy. Acting as a registrar to an issue. Do you know who is a registrar to an issue? Have you heard link in time? Have you ever applied to IPO, FPO? Applied or not? So generally they have a registrar to an issue who will take care of everything. With take care of registration of the certificate of shares, registration of depository participant, everything. So registrar to an issue is a like kind of lead banker who is taking care. So generally link in time is one registrar. So you can also apply yourself as a registrar to an issue or for transfer of shares or other securities. Similarly, for quality audit, environmental audit, energy audit, these all also you can do. What you cannot do is, remember, you cannot go to pub, right? Then you can be a Vasuli bhai. You can be an insurance financial advisory service, including insurance brokerage. Now, this insurance brokerage should be limited for the purpose of renewal commission only. What we saw, right? Else, institute will not allow you the permission to do so. You can be an insolvency professional also. So many of your principals might have given institutes. My principal gave IP examination and he cleared and is also an insolvency professional also. So you can also take up the insolvency professional task. So this is also given under the purview of MCS, Management Consultancy Services, section 224. Similarly, all the administrative services. What all administrative services are covered? Example C: word processing services, typewriting services, TDS return submission, TDS payment, due date reminder to the clients. All these administrative services that you give, these are also allowed. Just see this example of word processing administrative services. So that is all with respect to section 224. I told you 90% of the time the question will come from pub. Remember, P for portfolio management, U for underwriting. You cannot become an underwriter. And B for broker.
Banking.
No, not bank.
Okay.
Obviously, for bank, you will have to apply to RBI. Do you know about AU Small Finance Bank? AU Small Finance Bank. Have you listened it about this? No. AU Small Finance Bank. You haven't even heard about this bank. AU Small Finance Bank is a big bank. Presence in
Yes.
Rajasthan mostly is a kind of regional bank, but mostly it's present in Rajasthan. And I'll tell you the story. It was started by two chartered accountants, all India rankers. It was started by them as an NBFC. They started, and now it's a very good bank, having more than 1,000 crore revenue. It's a huge bank. Recently, 2 3 years back, they converted into bank. So anyway, if you are wanting to go into banking, then obviously you cannot have the POP and you will have to take permission of RBI and everything.
RB.
License has to be taken, banking license, right? So these two banks were done by AU Small Finance Bank, and this one more bank was there, Bandhan Bank, I recall, or no, not Bandhan Bank. That was also this AU Small Finance Bank. You should read the story. Two chartered accountants, AIRs. You should listen to this story how they created this bank. First started with NBFC, then slowly and slowly. This is a big story, but really impressive. It's a very big bank. You could search it also on Google. You do not get calls from credit cards company, right? This AU Small Finance Bank have literally troubled a lot. They call in every like 3 to 4 days once for credit card. Section 6 COP, Certificate of Practice. So no Moti means member of the institute. No Moti is entitled to practice whether in India or elsewhere unless he has obtained certificate of practice. Right? If we do so, then we'll be held guilty under clause 1 of part 2 of schedule 2. Every member shall pay such annual fee for his certificate as may be determined. Now, please read this point and tell me my answer. What does it says? Yes, Nikita, please tell me the answer. I'll be asking the question. This question. Once the person concerned becomes a Moti, once Nikita you become member of the institute, you are bound by the provisions of the Chartered Accountants Act and its regulation. Okay? Now that if you appear before the income tax tribunal as an income tax representative, Nikita, after having become a chartered accountant, you could appear only in his capacity as a chartered accountant and as a moti. Clear? As a chartered accountant, as a member only. He could not set provision of CA Act at naught by contending that even though he continues to be a member of the institute and he has been punished by a suspension from practice as a member, he would be entitled in substance to practice in some other capacity. So tell me, Nikita, I am giving you one scenario. You, after clearing chartered accountancy, you become member of the institute, you also obtain COP, and now you were practicing as an income tax practitioner and you were fighting the cases for your client. You were representing in income tax as representative. Now, one fine day, institute suspended you from COP, but still you are a member, but they have suspended you to have COP. Whether you will be entitled to practice and go to income tax authorities in front of income tax authorities in certain other capacity, in some other capacity, whether will you be entitled to go to and represent your income tax client and in some other capacity? Nikita, just please read this again and tell me.
Yes.
Yes, please
Yes.
read again. Everyone else, what's the answer?
No, sir. He
Yes,
No,
will
sir, he would
go.
be entitled.
yes or no?
No,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
No, sir.
So mixed view. Read again. Yes wale also read again, no wale also read again.
Sir, it has been written that he would be entitled in substance to practice in some other capacity.
So what is your answer?
Yes, sir, he would be. But it means he can represent himself in other capacity.
So will you just read last line or you should read entire line? See from where is it starting? The sentence is starting from, if he appears
Sir,
before income tax tribunal as an income tax representative after becoming a moti, he could so appear only in his capacity as a CA and a moti. He could not set provisions of CA Act at naught. I cannot set CA provisions at naught. What do you understand by this line? This means that you cannot simply ignore the above line, just what we read. We just read that if you are a chartered accountant and a moti, you can represent income tax authorities or anywhere where you are representing only in a capacity of a chartered accountant. You cannot set this provision that we just saw at naught. You cannot ignore this provision by contending that even though you continue to be the member, I am a member, even though I cannot be a practicing chartered accountant, but I am a moti. Even though I am a moti and I am being suspended from be a practicing, but I will be entitled to practice in some other capacity. This you cannot ignore by saying this. That means what? You cannot practice in some other capacity. Are you getting it what I am saying? You cannot. No, Sagar, ये बोल रहा है कि यू कैन नॉट सेट द प्रोविजंस ऑफ सीए एक्ट एट नॉट. तुम इग्नोर नहीं कर सकते ऐसे प्रोविजंस को. सीए एक्ट का प्रोविजन जो बोल रहा है कि यू कैन नॉट इग्नोर दिस प्रोविजन बाय सिंपली सेइंग दैट आई एम द मोती, even though I am not a practicing chartered accountant, I am a moti and I will be able to practice in some other capacity. You cannot simply say this. You cannot simply set the provisions of the chartered accountant at naught. What is the provision of chartered accountant says? It says that once you become a moti and once you go to practice as an income tax practitioner, you will be deemed that you will be acting in a capacity of as a chartered accountant only. Clear? So here you will be deemed that you are acting in the capacity of a practicing chartered accountant, and since you are being suspended from practicing as a chartered accountant, therefore you cannot go and represent your authorities and you cannot represent in front of income tax authorities. You cannot set provisions of the chartered accountants act at naught. Clear? Any doubt? Just see the question just beside that. Two questions are there. Two questions are there. If not clear, then you will be cleared from after seeing this question. Anyone still any doubt? Nikita, is it clear now?
Yes, sir.
You should be able to reciprocate this sentence in your suggested answer. Once you become a chartered accountant, you moti, you are bound by the provisions of a chartered accountant tax. And what does the provision says? It says that if you appear before income tax tribunal or anywhere income tax representative, after becoming a Moti, then you could appear so only in your capacity as a chartered accountant. And you cannot set provisions of C Act at naught by contending that even though I am been suspended from practicing, but I am a member of the institute, I can act in some other capacity. You cannot simply say this. Clear? Have you gone through these two questions? Now come to regulation 10, cancellation. Cancellation of COP. So regulation 10 provides that a COP shall be liable for cancellation if that means what, a certificate of practice will be liable for cancellation if you are being removed from ROM. So if you are removed from ROM, you are no more entitled to call yourself as Moti. Yes or no? For you to call yourself as member of the institute, you need to register yourself in the register of members. But if you are not a Moti, how can you then get COP? For in order to get yourself a COP, you need to first be a member of the institute. Correct. So if you are removed from the register of members, then you also have to submit, or you also have to surrender your COP. Clear? Similarly, the council is satisfied after giving a reasonable opportunity of being heard that such certificate was issued to you after you provided incorrect information to us. You misled us, you manipulated us, you gave false information to us, and after we come to know about this, you will ask you to surrender the COP because you fraudulently obtained the COP. Or a member has ceased to practice, member has stopped practicing chartered accountancy. Then also institute can ask the cancellation of certificate of practice under regulation 10. Similarly, member has not paid annual fee. This is important. Member has not paid annual fee. So annual fee has to be paid by the member till 30th of the September of the relevant year. Till 30th September of the year. So for suppose financial year 22-23, or sorry, what is the financial 23-24? I will have to pay by 30th September 2023. I'll have to pay the fees. I'll have to pay the certificate fees, COP fees, annual fee by 30th September 2023. If not, COP will be cancelled with effect from 1st October. Are you getting this? If not, COP will be stand cancelled with effect from 1st October. And where a COP is cancelled, the holder shall surrender the same to the secretary. However, once cancelled, the COP once cancelled can be restored. Under regulation 10, it is given a COP can be restored. So the council may restore the COP on an application made in approved form and on payment of such fee. So you were not paying the fee for certificate of practice. So suppose you paid the fees on 31st of December on New Year evening. New Year Eve, you remember that I had to pay the fees. My membership, my COP has been cancelled by the institute. Therefore, once you pay the COP, it will be restored, and importantly, it will be restored from the date it got cancelled. Retrospective restoration. Retrospective restored from the date it got cancelled. That means it got cancelled from 1st October, right? So it will be restored retrospectively from the date it got cancelled. However, the important point to note is here that you need to pay within that year, within the relevant year. That means you will have to pay by 31st March 2024. If you pay by 31st March 2024, then the restoration will happen with effect from 1st October. That means retrospective restoration. However, after this, if you pay the fees, the restoration will be prospective. That means in between 1st October till the time you pay the fees, suppose for 5th April 2024, all the audits or any practicing sort of service that you might have provided will be null and void because you did not have COP. The practicing services that you provided also will be null and void. Whatever sign you would have done, signing or all the sort of certification reporting will all be null. So in order for you to avail the benefit of retrospective restoration, you have to pay the fees within that relevant financial year. And if you pay after that, the COP will be restored from the date when you pay the fee. Are we clear? So see here, what is the effective date? And here also with effect from the date on which it was cancelled, However, it is received, the fee is received by the secretary before the expiry of the relevant year. Are we clear? The fee is being received by the council before the expiry of the relevant year. The effective date. The effective date. Application for restoration requisite fees are made within the same financial year. Then tell me what will be the effective date? You all, please. In the first case, application for restoration and requisite fees are made within the same year of removal. When will the restoration happen? From the date it got cancelled. Okay, from the date it got cancelled. Now tell me, removal of name was done under the order of BOD and disciplinary committee. So board of director, disciplinary committee, do you remember they also had the right to remove the name of the member from the register of member. So once removed, the COP will also be suspended, removed, surrendered, has to be surrendered. So according to the order of BOD or DC, again they are restoring the same. Again they are restoring the same. Then what will be the effective date? Effective date will be according to order. Whatever they mention in the order, accordingly that will be the effective date of restoration of COP. Clear? Similarly, in other cases, it will be the date on which the application and fee are received. That means after the relevant year, if you are paying the fee, the restoration will happen after you pay the fees, after you file the form. Clear? Regulation 10. Easy? Yes or no? You'll just have to see and try to recollect once. Just the provision, basic provision in your own language, just try to reframe it in your mind. It's very easy. So restoration, there are three cases. Firstly, effective date will be if you are paying it within relevant financial year, then retrospective from the date it got cancelled. If it is done after the relevant financial year, it will be from the date on which the fee is paid, form is filed. And if it is because of on the order of BOD, DC order, then according to their orders. Similarly, when can it be cancelled? COP can be cancelled if you cease to practice. If you cease to be a member of the institute, ROM se naam hat gaya. And then you fail to pay the fees with the 30th of the September of that relevant year. Clear? Section 8. Section 8, come to here. So section 8, disabilities, that means what? You cannot get yourself registered under register of member. That means you cannot become member of the institute Moti if you have not attained the age of 21 years at the time of application for the entry of your name in the register. You have not become age of 21 years and you have qualified your chartered accountancy exam. So you must be aware about this, right? Many of the candidates are clearing. Are you aware about this person? AIR 1, All India rank 1.
Yes.
And when she
Yes, sir.
secured, she was of age 19, I guess. So she will have to wait for 2 years to get herself registered as a chartered accountant's register of members. Then if he is of unsound mind and stand so adjudicated by a competent court, important, stand so adjudicated by a competent court. If you are an unsound mind, pagal hai. So if you are unsound mind and you have been stand so adjudicated by a competent court, tell me, suppose Sony is now leaving her home for her breakfast and her neighbors call her, ये लड़की पागल है, पागल है, पागल है, पागल है. Will she be able to audit A Limited if she being appointed as auditor of A Limited? Will she be able to do the audit of A Limited? She has been declared unsound mind. ये लड़की पागल है, पागल है, पागल है, पागल है.
Sir, not by the competent court, only
So it
by
is
the
not done
neighbors.
by the competent court, right? It has to be adjudicated by a competent court. That is what is important here. This is come in RTP as well. This is not one question which I am framing by my own. This ladki pagal hai, pagal hai, pagal hai. See, just beside this RTP question, A Limited is appointed as an auditor and they have been told as an unsound mind. Ladki pagal hai, pagal hai, pagal hai, pagal hai. Is the appointment valid? So answer will be, if the same has been adjudicated by competent court, then yes, the appointment is invalid. If vice versa, then invalid. What am I written? If the same has not been adjudicated by competent court, then appointment is valid, else it will be invalid. Clear? This is very old question, 2013 or something around that. Now third point is if you are being declared undischarged insolvent. Undischarged insolvent. What do you mean by undischarged insolvent? You must have learned in your class 11, class 12. Do you remember? Bad debts will be settled by paying 60 paisa per rupee. By paying 60 paisa. 60 आना देंगे 60 पैसा per rupee. Do you remember class 11, class 12 journal entries? So what does that mean? That you have been now discharged from your insolvency. Insolvency, the court has dissolved you and you will pay off all the debts that you owe. Out of 100 rupees, you will pay 60 rupees to each and every debtor. So now here, you have not been discharged. You are still, insolvency proceeding is still being pending. So undischarged insolvent. That means you have not discharged your insolvency. You have not paid your insolvency. Getting this? Similarly, if you are being a discharge insolvent, that means you have paid 60 paisa per rupee. Court declared you to give 60 paisa per rupee. You have been discharged insolvent, but you have not obtained the court a certificate. You need to obtain a certificate from the court that, dear court, this insolvency occurred because of certain earthquake or certain disaster that happened. It was not because of me doing certain malpractice or me manipulating or me doing any fraud. It was not because of that. It was just because one fire broke out in my premises, and that is why I became insolvent. So you have to obtain one certificate from the court that this insolvency was not on account of you doing any sort of misconduct. This insolvency on account of disaster that has happened and not because of any sort of misconduct. Then only you will be able to get yourself registered under the register of member. Else you will be still be disabled. Disability. What are we learning? Disabilities. If you have been convicted by a competent court, now this 8.5 was mentioned. Do you remember 8.5? You have been convicted by a court, competent court, whether within or outside India, of an offence involving moral turpitude and punishable with transportation or imprisonment, or of an offence not of a technical nature committed by him in his professional capacity, unless in respect of the offence committed, he has either been granted a pardon or an application made by him in this behalf by the central government as order in writing removed the disability. That means what? In essence, you are being ordered an offence and imprisoned the same, and the exception would be you have been pardoned or you have been excused by the central government for you to remove or waive of this disability. If you attract this 8.5 section 8 clause 5, do you remember we have already studied this? If you are attracting section 8 clause 5, it will come under where? Which clause?
Schedule 1, Part
Clause
4.
Schedule
Schedule
1
1, Part 4, Class
clause
1,
2.
and
Schedule
Schedule
1
2.
part 4 clause 2. Example illustration. Just go to there. Illustration you will see. Schedule 1 part 4 clause 2. Do you remember we learned lot of illustrations there? See here. Mm, See here. Illustrative example point number 4. Conviction by a competent court of law for any offence under section 8 clause 5 of the CA Act 1949. So what you need to do along with me, also link na. When I am telling, you should also try to link there. You can link here that read section 8 clause 5 in page number there, and you can also link there that if attracted section 8 clause 5 violated, then you will attract clause 2 of part 4 of schedule 1. Attract clause 2 of part 4 of schedule 1. You should write there itself in section 8.5. So wherever I am linking, try to link along and write. This notes, this space is given for you only. If not written now, you will definitely won't be remembering the linkage. Let's come to now section 20. Removal of the name from register of members. Your name will be removed from the ROM. Now here we are not studying COP removal. Here we are studying what? Moti, Moti. You are being removed as a Moti. Won't be able to call yourself a Moti. So council may remove from the register the name of any Moti in the following cases. If you are dead, right? If from whom a request has been received to that effect, that means you yourself are requesting the chartered accountant body to remove yourself from register of member. You can think of this as Praveen Sharma sir. Do you remember the protest that happened? So the protest that happened, he was declaring that okay, fine, take my COP, take my registration, take my membership. I don't want. So you can link this as this one. Either you are dead, or either you are Praveen Sharma sir, or you have who has not paid any prescribed fees required to be paid by you. So see, COP fees also has to be paid by 30th September, and you also have to pay the membership fee, which is around 3,600 something. I don't remember. Just recently I paid. So 3,600 fees. This also you have to pay it separately. Membership fee separate, certificate practice of certificate fee separate. Clear? So if you are not paying the fee for membership, then also you will be removed from the ROM. Then who is found to have been subject at the time when his name was entered to be ROM, you were being found to be disabled under section 8. That means when you applied to be your name to be inserted in ROM, you have been fined with certain disabilities under section 8. So will you be able to get yourself registered under ROM? No. Similarly, council will remove the name of any member from ROM where an order has been passed under this act removing in name membership from the institute. So there are certain orders which the institute passed. Just like example, disciplinary committee. If example, for example, there is an offense which you committed under clause 7 of part 1 of schedule 2, schedule 2 part 1 clause 7, which was with respect to what? Grossly negligency. You did the work something with grossly negligent, or suppose you availed the ITC on behalf of the client, and these all these were on behalf fake invoices. So you must have heard in the news also that institute is taking action against these chartered accountants who helped client in taking false ITCs or other sort of tax frauds, and they are claiming that they are ordering it under this act only, chartered accountants act only they are ordering, and they will be removing their names from the ROM. So that is what is this second point. Their order is being created under this act, ordered under the Chartered Accountants Act 1949, and the name has been removed from the membership from the institute. Clear? So if your name has been removed from ROM for non-payment of fee, for non-payment of fees, then it will can be again restored. It can again be restored if you pay the fees. That is what last point is. Clear? Yes, so last three sections only, section 23, 24, and then section 27. Then we'll be done. Let's quickly come to section 24. Again, do you remember clause 24? Clause 24 of tax audit. Form 3CD. I told you what is on 24th.
Your birthday dates.
Yeah, so my birthday is 24. So on birthday, what you should remember?
Deemed
Income chargeable. Deemed income chargeable under section 32 AC, 32 AD, 33 AB, 33 ABA, 33 30, 33 AB, 33 ABA, right? So deemed income under these sections. So similarly 24, again you will have to remember that I had to pay penalty on my birthday. Section 24 is with respect to penalty for falsely claiming to be a member. So suppose Sony, tell me, if you are not a registered member of the institute, Moti, and you represent yourself as a chartered accountant, if you represent yourself as a chartered accountant and you are not a registered member of the institute, so what will is the punishment? The punishment on the first case, in the first conviction, fine which may extend to rupees 1,000. So Sony, quickly tell me, can you do so? If you are not a Moti, can you represent yourself as a Moti?
No, sir. If I represent myself as a Moti, then I will be punishable. So fine.
Yeah, so you can, na? 1,000 only you will have to pay. So you can pay 1,000 at least. You can declare yourself as CA, right? With just a cost of penalty of 1 lakh, 1000. Now second time, will you do? Can you do again second time? What do you think? Can you do this same thing second time? Imprisonment which
Yeah.
may extend to 6 months, or with fine which may extend to 5000, or with both. What do you think? Can you do?
Yes, if I
Yeah.
want to take, I want to give
So
the
total
fine and
in total you will be spending only 6000, right? And you can spend many years. So if you are not a moti but you represent yourself as a moti, or use a designation of chartered accountant, and even if you are a moti but not having a certificate of practice, but you are showing it as if you are practicing, then you will be held guilty. And on first conviction, what is the amount of penalty? 1000. Second conviction, you can be imprisoned for 6 months, or penalty of 5000, or both, right? Clear? Then this section is very very important, section 25. Companies not to engage in accountancy. Already we know that's right. Companies cannot do audit and attestation services in corporate form of practice, is not allowed. Yes or no? Here the point to be noted is that no company, whether incorporated in India elsewhere, shall practice as CAs. Here the term company shall include any LLP which has company as its partner. Can an LLP do audit and attestation services? Can an LLP perform audit and attestation services? Yes or no? Sagar is saying
yes,
no. Yes or no? Can an LLP perform audit or attestation services or
yes,
no?
yes,
Section 143 subsection 1 clause A clearly says what? No body corporate will be allowed to do audit, right? So LLP, is it a body corporate? First of all, tell me. Yes or no? LLP is a body corporate, right? LLP is a body corporate, but section 141 subsection 3 says what? No body corporate excluding LLP is allowed to do the audit of company. Now, LLP can do the audit. However, LLP, if having company as its partner, LLP is having company as its partner, cannot perform audit and attestation services. Are we clear? Not yet asked by ICI or anywhere, be it MTP, RTP, or anywhere, can be asked. So, company include any LLP which has company as its partner for the purpose of this section. Clear? So, therefore, it can be inferred that LLP not having any company as its partner can be engaged into practicing and thus take audit engagements. Again,
Please
contravention.
repeat.
Yes, I'll repeat again. See, company form, corporate form of practice, company form, if you have created company A limited, can you do audit and attestation services? Kripali?
No.
No. Similarly, it says what? If a LLP, tell me, can an LLP do audit and attestation services?
So only as
Yes.
per Companies Act, na?
LLP is as per LLP Act. LLP has to be registered as per LLP Act, incorporated as
As
per
per
LLP Act.
Section 143, you said.
So section 143 says that no body corporate excluding LLP shall perform the audit of a company. So no body corporate excluding LLP. So LLP, even if it's a body corporate, can do the audit of a company. No body
Yeah.
corporate excluding LLP can perform the audit of a company. That means what? LLP as a body corporate can do, because it is excluded na, from section 141 subsection 3 disqualification. So
Yes.
LLP can do audit and
But
attestation services. Yes or no?
in this section, it has been written na, ki including any LLP.
Yeah, for the purpose of this section, company
Hmm.
includes any LLP in which your partner is a company. So suppose LLP, you are partner, I am also partner, and there is also a company who is a partner in our LLP. Then for the purpose of this section, you cannot do the audits. That means you will be violating section 25, because section 25 says what? Company engage नहीं हो सकती है auditing accounting service देने के लिए. And company includes LLP which includes in itself a partner as a company. अगर LLP में कोई कंपनी पार्टनर है तो फिर वो LLP भी ऑडिट नहीं कर सकती. Else LLP can do. अगर नॉन कंपनी पार्टनर्स है LLP के अंदर तो एक LLP कैन परफॉर्म द ऑडिट. क्लियर कृपाली, सागर? Anyone else?
Yes, sir.
Now again contravention. First conviction 1000, subsequent conviction 5000. Institute is very like a godly and fatherly figure to us, so don't charge much. You can give 1000 and get billed away. Okay. Last very important section, last section, section 27 of Chartered Accountants Act 1949. If at all the question comes from the sections provisions that we just saw, 90% of the time it comes from section 27. So you have to remember by heart section 27 of maintenance of branch office. What does it say? What do you mean by office? First of all, so office is any place, any location which is mentioned in your letterhead, which is mentioned in your professional documents, in which your form board is put up, right? So place where a name board is fixed, that means Chandak and Associates, Chandak and Associate is mentioned, or where such a place is mentioned in the letterhead or other professional documents of the place of a business, then that place is called as office. So first is office, a place where a name board is fixed or where place is mentioned in your letterhead or professional documents, right? Secondly, use of name board at residence. I told you this. Do you know? Can we put our nameplate CA Yash Chandak in front of our home? Yes. Can we put Chandak and Associate name board in front of our home? No. That is what it is
No.
mentioned here. And that is also important, asked many times by the institute. Thirdly, requirement of a separate in charge. Requirement of separate in charge. So requirement of separate in charge tells you what? That in case you have more than one office, in case you have more than one office, then you have to ensure that that second office that you have has to be a chartered accountant in there who is in charge of that office. Getting this? The second office that you have, your branch office, it has to have a chartered accountant who is in charge of that branch office. Are we clear? There are certain exceptions there we need to see. But firstly, who can be a chartered accountant who can be in charge of your second office? So it says that that chartered accountant, that member has to be actively associated with such office. That means it's not like he is going that place and also coming back again to head office. He's just visiting it for 1 hour and then coming back, or whatever sort of reason. It has to be actively associated with such office. And when do we say that he is actively associated with such office? When such association shall be deemed to exist if the member resides in the place where the office is situated for more than equal to 182 days, or if he attends the said office for a period of not less than 182 days or more. Clear? So either you are residing in that place or either you visit to that place for a period of 182 days or more. So suppose I have an office in Raipur, I have a branch office in Nagpur, I have a branch office in Nagpur, then I need to ensure that I have a separate CA in charge. I am in charge of Raipur HO head office. I need to ensure that there is a separate CA in charge who is in charge of Nagpur office, and that person has to reside in Nagpur for a period of 182 days or more, or has to go and come for a period of 182 days or more. That is visiting the Nagpur office for a period of 182 days or more. Clear? Then only that person will be deemed to be known as separate in charge. CA member deemed to be known as separate in charge. Clear? Then let's finally conclude with exemptions. And these are very important exemptions from separate in charge, might be asked, can come in your exam. Exemptions from separate in charge. That means what? Even if you do not keep another chartered accountant in practice or another chartered accountant, member only, and if a chartered accountant's practice or a firm of CA has more than one office in India, each one of such office should be a separate charge of a MOTI only. So he need not be a practicing chartered accountant. He can be a normal CA or your employee CA, CAP or your employee CA. So here it says that member practicing in hilly areas. So suppose I have a head office in Manali, and already in winter seasons no animal also comes in Manali, then do you think any client will come? Any client will it come? Will he come? No. So I'll do what? I'll go to Delhi and have my another branch office. I'll go to Delhi and I'll have my another branch office, and there it will not be called as that I will have to have a CA, separate CA in charge in Manali. What will he do? What will he do in such a cold environment, right? So that is what he's saying. You are allowed to open temporary office in a city in the plains not exceeding 3 months in a year. Not exceeding for 3 months in a year. The regular office need not be closed. So what is the point of this regulation then? If you are closing the regular office, then you are only having one office. What we are learning, that even if you are having two office, still you need to have a separate CA in charge only in one CA office. So regular office need not be closed. It is okay. It is okay not to close the regular office, and all the correspondence can continue to be at the regular office only. Thirdly, the name board of the firm in the temporary office should not be displayed at times other than when you are there in Delhi. So the name board of Chandak and Associates should appear in Delhi office, Delhi branch office only when I am there in Delhi. When I'm going back to Manali, I'll keep the name board with me and travel with bus, and also again put the same name board in front of my Manali office. ठीक है? Name board of the firm shall not be kept in the Delhi office except for the period where I am practicing there in the Delhi office, branch office. The temporary office should not be mentioned in the letterheads. The Delhi office should not be mentioned. Remember this. Visiting card or any other place of business or the member or firm. And now before commencement of every winter, it shall be obligatory on the member or firm to inform the institute that it is opening a temporary office in Delhi from a particular date, and after the office is closed, then also you'll have to inform to the institute that we are closing the Delhi office and going back to our regular office in Manali. Are we clear with this?
Yes, sir.
Now one question you will find in RTP or MTP, I don't exactly remember the attempt, but it's there in the compiler. I'm not included here, I'll include it on this book as well. But one question is there, where a chartered accountant in practice during the month of April, May and June went to open another office in Plains area and did not keep a separate CA in charge in its regular office. Will he be held guilty?
No, sir.
No. Everyone know?
If he can't able to stay there in the cold area, how the other person will stay there?
So actually my question was chartered accountant during the month of April, May and June. If you have listened to this, I don't know, but when I went through the question, I particularly pointed the month April, May, month of April, May and June, and therefore I called it as he'll be held guilty because in winter it's feasible for you to open a branch office and go there and practice. So the intention of the provision seems to be like that, but in the answer institute have not held him as guilty. That means not exceeding 3 months, fine, done, okay, good, well and good. You'll just have to write all these 5 points and tell that it's not exceeding for 3 months. Every else condition has to be satisfied. He will not be held guilty of professional misconduct. So month doesn't matter, although intention seems to be like that, right? But the question is there of the institute in RTP or MTP just recently, not included here, but just to give a heads up, there is one question like this. And I committed a mistake when once I was solving for the first time. I particularly remember this, and therefore some of you might think on that lines that April, May, June in India might not be a winter season. So you don't have to, what you can say, assume on your part. Weather is also anyway unpredictable nowadays, right? So maybe that case. Just remember all these 5 points. You will have to say this. That what all 5 points? You are allowed to open a temporary office in a plain area for not exceeding 3 months. First point. Second office, regular office need not be closed All the correspondence can continue to be flowed to the regular office only. Name board of the firm in the temporary office shall not be displayed at times other than when you are practicing there in the temporary office. And temporary office should also not be mentioned in any of your letterheads, visiting cards, professional documents, or any other sort of professional documents. And before commencement and after closure, you have to intimate it to the institute. Clear with the 5 points? So last, we'll see second office. So suppose your second office is just in the same building. This building only where I am here is in the first floor. In the first floor, my office is there, and my second office is here in the top floor. So here also exemption is being given only for the second office. Now if I go for third office, then no exemption. Here only for second office exemption is there. Getting this? Second office exemption is there if you are opening the office in the same building or if in the same city. That is, my another office is in the same city, Raipur. I opened another office. And thirdly, suppose I have opened another second office within 50 kilometers from municipality limits. Municipality limits of the city. So municipality limits of the city where it ends, from there 50 kilometers. From there 50 kilometers, if you are opening another branch office, then that second branch office, second office is allowed for you to open. So, and no separate in charge is required for you to keep there. Clear? Yes or no, Sagar? ठीक
Yes,
है?
sir.
Let's repeat again. If the second office is open in the same building, same premises, in the same city, or within 50 kilometers from the municipality limits of the city, then there need not be any separate in charge in the office of that second branch office. So let's just see this example. First head office is here, and then 15 kilometers my city X municipality ends, and from here I am opening another branch office here. So here it is 35 kilometers, and for another 10 kilometers I am opening my branch office. What do you think? Can I open and not keep any separate in charge, chartered accountant separate in charge? Do you think? Is it within 50 kilometers?
Yes, sir.
Right? Yes.
Because
So from municipality, it is how much? 35 plus 10 kilometers, right? So even if it is in another city, even if it is in city Y and we are in city X, even if it is in another city, it is within the 50 kilometers of the municipality borders, and therefore it will not be held guilty. ठीक है? Section 27. Remember section name, section 27. Branch office exemption, both the exemption and the provision of section 27. Very, very important. I told you 90% of the cases when they are.
so audio.
Audio.
Yeah. So we are done with professional ethics. Just see this last question, May 18 question. CA firm or firm shall inform the council within 1 month of opening or closing of any branch office. You have to remember this. So in the question, what happened? In the question, second office was opened within 50 kilometers. And in the last line, they mentioned that they have not informed to the institute. In the last line, they mentioned this, that they have not informed to the institute. So it will be held guilty. You will be held guilty of professional misconduct. So do not forget to read each and every line. You will see, you will just from the flow of the question, you will see, okay, within 50 kilometers, everything, fatafat, you will tend to make a mistake, right? You will tend to ignore the last line. So this was one question where you can commit a mistake. So this came in May 18, and rest all we have covered. Everything we have covered in this chapter, professional ethics, each and every point has been covered. Significant importance has been given to all areas so that no areas been left by you on your part. Now it is on your duty to revise, recollect, retain, and then forget, and then again revise, and then give test. So this is very, very important chapter. Tax audit, again, what, how much tax audit? Suppose 5 marks weightage is there, then here also it's almost like 12 to 14 marks. So overall 20 marks weightage we have done till now. Two important chapters we are done with. And trust me, tax audit is a chapter which most of the students try to leave before exam. So please do not do so. Try to revise as many times as you can, so that in every next revision you will you will be giving very much less amount of time. Similarly, for professional ethics, it is very important chapter. It is also asked in MCQ. It is also asked in descriptive. This attempt, they asked only one question, only one. Generally, on an average, 3 questions have come till now in all the attempts. All the attempts, you can see. Okay. So I'll be giving you test papers in a matter of hour or so. Try to solve it by tonight. We'll either discuss it by tonight or no, not tonight, but we'll discuss it tomorrow then. Okay. And tomorrow class, can we keep it in evening?
So we may discuss it on Monday
Why?
so that we can revise it again and again.
You want me to discuss test answers on Monday?
Yeah.
Okay. So tomorrow we'll be starting with peer review, quality review chapter, and solve the question paper by today only, and we'll be discussing it on Monday if you all want that. And on Tuesday you will be having PE test. So prepare accordingly, buckle up. Tuesday hoga hi hoga PE test, professional ethics test on Tuesday. So by today give the text test. I hope everyone is prepared anyway, right? So no more preparation required. Straight away jump on to test. Then jump on to professional ethics revision. Try to revise at least 2 times. If at all you are comfortable in Hindi, there is a revision video of 3.5 hours where I have revised everything in this, whatever we are covered, till including questions. So you can make use of that as well. I'll share the playlist if you all want. And if not, then do revise it. If you are not comfortable in Hindi, then revise yourself. If required, tell me. I can take a revisionary session by today or tomorrow. On weekend, I can take a revisionary session. Just let me know then. If you are not able to revise properly, we can have a revisionary session in a 2 or 3 hour. We can revise entire professional ethics. ठीक है?
सर कल
चलो.
इवनिंग में रहेगी फिर क्लास?
Yeah, I'll let you know.
ओके सर, बाय सर.
Bye.
Bye, sir.